right, what's up, everybody? Good to be back. I know today's not Wednesday, but last week, obviously, there was the celebrational and the calling, so I did not do a stream out of respect for that event. Trying to all eyes on that event as it should be. So I thought that because you know we're at a point in the game where there's a lot of information to be given, or things to be analyzed and things like that. So I thought that it would be a good idea to do two streams basically. So I'm gonna be doing one today, and then also doing one on the usual Wednesday, 2 days from now. And today's topic is going to be, we're going to chat for about 20 minutes before we dig into um, actually reverse engineering the set, kind of like, what are some of the hints that the devs gave us, things like that, and just deck building ideas for each hero, where to start, things like that. So when the set first came out, right? It was kind of weird because we got, what was it? All the heroes and like a few cards for each. Approximately probably 20% of the set got spoiled, and then there was a long gap. And then we actually got the set spoiled. So my last stream was between where we got the heroes and a couple cards, and we got the 75-80% of the rest of the set. And I ended that stream giving a ranking on where I thought the heroes were land, obviously with very, very limited information. And we're going to basically start the conversation in a few minutes about how I was wrong. Simple as that. I was wrong given that I only had a fifth of the information, right? And I said before, I didn't even want to do it, but people were asking, and so I gave my speculative, assessment, and it just was not correct. So I agree. Kayo seems strong. However, there are consistent ways that you can build him, and there are inconsistent ways. I prefer the more consistent way, as everybody can probably assume. And I'm actually enjoying him probably the most from an enjoyment factor out of all of them. But he does do some very above rate things pretty easily, actually. So I've been spending a lot of time on him specifically, but some others as well. So first things first, I wanted to be a little bit honest, where when we got the hero, so like in the first day of spoiler season, I was kind of really down on the set. Like it looked like another like kind of situation where they were kind of introducing the new power level that they're trying to obviously reduce in the game, and it was just like, man, I really don't see any of this being relevant. But then like day 2 and day 3 happened, where we got cards like Lead with Speed, Trounce, cards like that. And I went from, this is like a set that's probably closer to Dusk Till Dawn, to this set is as good, maybe better than Outsiders. And for those of you who have heard me talk during the stream, I'm a big fan of that set. So over the course of the last day of spoilers, it completely flipped my perspective of this set, and I think it was a very, very well done set. We are getting, I don't want to say power creep, but I mean the game is developing in a way, right? Whereas, bright lights, because of the boost mechanic and all the heroes being the same class, to balance limited, the devs, it seems, were like forced to make certain decisions, like reprinting the same cards at lower rate, kind of situation, like 0 to 50, the meme. And yeah, this set is not that. This set has very above rate cards, very at rate cards, are there some stinkers? Of course, there can't be every single card can't be super powerful, right? But overall, the day this set comes out, it will impact the meta, and that's what some of the things that I wanted to talk about. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, kind of like where my thought process was over spoiler season. And I think that this set is a home run, especially from a limited perspective. For the past two sets, Outsiders and Bright Lights, most games were won via blocking and blocking a lot. So I think that Heavy Hitters is, obviously by the name of the set, it's a lot more entertaining to watch. It's probably, I haven't played it yet, but it's probably a lot funner to play. Or more fun, sorry. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of like the fatiguey kind of like gameplay. I'm okay if it's like nuanced, but if you walk into the format and you know that that's like 90% of it and you're just deck building to avoid that situation, it kind of gets old really quick. But this situation is much different. It's very difficult to, you can see where the devs reduce the block value on a lot of the cards to prevent that from happening. Now, can it still happen in draft? Absolutely. But I think the only way you're fatiguing somebody in sealed is if one, they have like the worst pool on the planet, which you were winning anyway, or you fatigue via damage, right? And I think I don't know why I can't watch limited, to be honest. I actually understand that statement a little bit. It took a while for me to enjoy watching it. I really enjoyed playing Outsiders and Tales of Aria Limited, are like the only two sets that I've really enjoyed, and hopefully this one. The other ones were kind of like, I'll do it kind of situation. I did not like Monarch, I'm sorry. I despised that limited experience. And the only time I drafted WTR, which was fun, was the Farewell to Wraith event at my local LGS, which was a good time. But I do understand how, I think with limited, you have to walk in with like, I don't know. I think the more competitive you are, the more enjoyment you get out of. It's very hard to be a casual player and enjoy watching limited, because I'm not saying that you are or not, but I'm just saying that if somebody is a casual player, that's one thing that I could see where, drawing and connecting a lot of the lines and decision points that somebody is making could be. I enjoyed Tales of Aria Unlimited. I thought it was, at the start it sucked because everybody just drafted Briar, and then people realized that that's not the best strategy. I will admit that it sucked at the beginning, but what hero/heroes are you most excited for in the new set? So I've had, like I said earlier, I've had a ton of fun playing Kayo. I think I'm excited for him probably the most. But also I think Victor is got some play to him. And Rhinar is obviously an old hero. And then Kasai I'm interested to tinker with. I'm not too sure that I'll stick with that one, but actually very competitive. I love playing limited, but watching it kind of meh. I mean, Tobias, is that like, you really enjoyed Monarch? That's crazy. So we're just on opposite ends. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, Monarch was very swingy, right? There were like in-game swingy decisions, right? Which kind of like did it for me. Like you could have I sat down with Brody at Nationals and we registered each other's deck. And I was like, man, this dude's got it. He's got like a V for the Vanguard. He's got like a bunch of he had a solid Bolton deck. And I know Brody, obviously, as everybody else knows, is like very, is obviously a very good player. And he went, I think, 1-2 with it. And I think that there's a lot of in-game variance with Monarch Draft, I believe. That's my opinion. I could be wrong, but I would definitely die on that hill. But Are you still interested in Hatchet Dory? Absolutely, I am. Do I think it's the best deck on the planet or format? Probably not, but I think it is a viable deck choice. Kayo is literally CMH Briar all the time. Sam is catching on. It just does above rate shit all the time. It does. 100% agree. Spoiler alert, Mandible Claw is not the best weapon in KO, in case you guys didn't know. So I'm going to be honest, didn't like Monarch even though I'm a Prism main. I mean, that says it all. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. But anyway, I went on a side tangent with the questions. So I'm looking forward to the set, especially from a limited perspective. And also, I previously mentioned on the stream that I would not be at Hartford, Connecticut. I will be at Hartford, Connecticut now. There was a recent change in plans. Both Jason telling me that I'm scared of limited format, and Vero making a deal that was too good to pass up. I will now be attending Hartford. So hopefully I'll see everybody there. Looking forward to it. The only other deck I've been able to do CNC for 12 with Go Again. That's right. We know all about that, Sam, don't we? You're correct about it being swingy. Had a chain deck that was kind of bonkers in Monarch, but milled all my arcane. Yep, and that's just part of it. Ready to see Hatchet Story beat the Brute in the World's Final. Man, that would be something. That would be something. All right. So we'll be at Hartford. Looking forward. If you see me, please say hi. Looking forward to it. Obviously, we have pre-releases this weekend. Hope everybody has the opportunity to go out and enjoy some of those. And then hopefully we'll be ready soon for RTN season. RTN season is, I think, the weekend after Hartford. So we got a lot of competitive things, one after another. Looking forward to the season kicking back up after a nice little, month or two long break. So really looking forward to that. Okay. There was a couple things. I'll tell you what, let's just get into the topic. Let's go ahead and start the analysis on heavy hitters, right? And do what I refer to as reverse engineer the set, right? Because there's a lot of hints that you can get from the devs in their efforts to basically balance the set. And what if you look at it a certain way, you can kind of figure out what's better and what's not by looking at subtle things. And hopefully everybody gets some value. My goal at the end of this stream is for everybody to just have hopefully a better understanding or a couple bullet points, nuggets, whatever you want to call it, as far as like how to look at each hero or just things you didn't think of, whatever the case may be. Give you some of those and, get you on your way in building these new heroes and enjoying the new set. That's the goal. So let's hop right into it. All right. Okay. So we're obviously not going to go on like a super basic point of like reading every single card. I'm just going to start with a hero and go. Okay. And for no other reason than it is the first one on the list, we're going to go over Kayo. Okay. So we already know I'm assuming you know what Kayo's hero ability does. If you don't, there it is. And so we have one weapon, okay? So you kind of have two choices in this slot that kind of makes sense, and that is Mandible Claw and Ball Breaker, okay? I actually prefer Ball Breaker because I am a value-oriented player. It's what I prefer to do. I like consistent value oriented plays, and 4 is a bigger number than 3. Is kind of the idea. And I'm not looking for extreme high roll potential with Kayo because he kind of already has that built into his kit. Is kind of my thought process there. I just don't think you need all of that built into it. So I guess before we get into the heroes, let's go over one thing, and that is might, vigor, and agility, and how each hero, right? Because just about every single card in the set, not all, but just about every single card in the set, you have like 2 versions that are exactly identical, except the token changes on it, right? Which one do you play? You could play both, but most of the time you're going to have to pick one or the other in most lists, right? And basically, what I want to do is I want to go over each token and how each hero kind of prefers which token and kind of the proof that I have of that, right? So basically, everybody knows we have might, vigor, and agility. Agility is go again. It doesn't stack. All of these pop at the beginning of the turn, force you to utilize them on the turn preceding or starting your turn. And vigor is gain a resource, might attack on a weapon or attack action card, doesn't matter. And then agility, same, go again on either a weapon or a attack action card. Okay, now brutes have access to not vigor, so they have agility and might. Guardians have vigor and might, and then warriors have agility and vigor. So it's a nice little like triangle kind of situation going on there. Okay, but like I said, we will use cards as an example, like where is the lead set? Where's the lead cards? Here we go. Okay, so there's like a cycle of a lot of different cards, and there is basically lead with power, lead with speed, lead with vigor, I think is the name of them. And they literally say +3 and make X token, right? And they're basically the exact same cards, same stats, everything, just which token are you making, right? So as a brute player, we'll go over that first. You have access to agility or might, okay? Now, the way you should look at this is at first you're going to be like, of course agility is better than might. And you would be correct in that analysis. However, I don't think that that's the whole story, right? We obviously know that go again is better than +1 power in most cases. However, the way that I like to look at it is, most of the time when you draw a hand, there are a lot of hands where you just simply can't utilize an agility token, right? And there's very few ways that you can create the agility token and see the hand that you are trying to utilize it on. The only way to do that is by utilizing block cards or clash cards or the little instant cycle. Where are they at? Where are the instant cards? Slappy, so yeah, Slap Happy, where it prevents 2 and then gives you whatever token, right? There's one for same text, just, all 3 tokens. So these and the clash cards, and then blocking with your Clash of Vigor, Clash of Might, Clash of Agility are the only ways that you can create a token and see the hand in which you are creating it. So the reason that the Clash and the Clash of Agility one is kind of, you have to block with this card and make the agility maybe make the agility token, and then you have to have the hand to utilize it, right? And that's much more difficult, right? Whereas the might version, the point that I wanted to make is you can always, no matter what, if you have a weapon that does damage, you can utilize a might token, okay? There's not always the case that you can utilize an agility token. That's just how it is, right? So when you're doing your deck building for these heroes, one token will be better. However, what I promise you, due to the design decisions of the devs, a very tailored manner, whatever token is worse than the other, I promise you is a more consistent benefit. Okay, so if we compare agility to might, we just discussed it. Might can be used on anything. You have to have the right hand to really get value from an agility token. Now let's look at warrior, agility and vigor, right? I would say that agility is the more valuable token of the two, but once again, you have to. Warrior's kind of the exception. If you have a two one-handed weapons, it's very easy to always utilize an agility token. However, with Guardian, you have vigor and might. So same situation. Vigor is the higher value token because a lot of Guardians cost curves are like 4s and 7s and things like that, and reducing it by 1. Also with tectonic plating, you have the ability to roll a vigor token and get 2 turns to actually utilize the benefit of it, because you get to roll it into a seismic surge if you can't utilize it that turn. However, once again, might tokens are always playable, right? And this goes twofold with any card that has the word wager on it, right? So in your deck building decisions, you're going to be like, okay, in 90% of heroes, gold is probably better, right? In the heroes that actively want to be running this kind of stuff. So you might say, why would you ever run the +3 wager a might token over this? Well, when you enter into a wager, there is a situation where they could win, right? So maybe you're trying to mitigate your risk, not saying that it's correct to do so. I'm just saying that in your deck building process, the gold is the higher value, but if you lose, it is so much more of a negative, right? Whereas if you just wager a might token and you lose the wager, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one value. And even more so with the vigor, right? Like not all decks can just utilize a vigor token. They're not really designed to do so. Same thing for agility in some cases, right? And that will allow you to make certain wagers, and the risk is offset by your opponent's ability to utilize said token, right? So just keep that in mind when you are basically going over any of the wager mechanics or the might, vigor, agility, and gold as well. So I just wanted to go over that real quick because we're going to be like talking about the tokens and stuff like that, right? So let's get back to Kayo, okay? We have Kayo. I just talked about how I prefer Ball Breaker over Mandible Claw. The one situation where Mandible Claw is actually better is when you're on a all-out aggressive game plan, right? If you're trying to play nothing but 5-card hands, you just have simply more reach because you have the ability to play, I don't know, if you have an agility token, you can like swing big claw, or you can play like, I don't know, Bear Fangs and the claw into something else, right? So you have more reach on a 5-card hand. However, Ball Breaker allows you to do so much consistent above rate turns, such as Wild Ride into Tunic Ball Breaker is literally what, a 2-card, 1 tunic counter 11, right? Because you're pitching a card, playing Wild Ride, you draw and discard, right? So the draw discard is irrelevant. You don't factor it into the value. There is deck damage, sure, but you gain the might token if you build your deck correctly and you don't miss. So that means the Wild Ride is effectively coming in for 7, plus the Tunic Ball Breaker is 4, so that's 11. That's a 2-card 11 with Tunic counter, right? So that is insane, right? And there's so many ways you can do that, right? You can either have an agility token do the same thing with Bear Fangs. You can use pulping, wild ride. There's so many ways that you have access to that line. And that is the way that I prefer to play KO. You also have the option to do the whole berserk thing, and more power to you if that's what you want to do. Just understand that when you get done with your game and you go, you know, and you go talk to your group of friends that's at the tournament with you, keep in mind that they don't want to hear 7 times in one day that you didn't draw the one card you need to win every single game, because that's how you built your deck, right? So just be mindful of that, right? And I would never build a deck that says, if, like, a lot of people thought Briar was, if you don't see Channel Mount Heroic, you lose the game. But I vastly disagree with that statement. And that's why I would never play a deck that I would design, and if I didn't see a 1 of 3 copy, I just lost the game. Like, that just seems crazy to me. Not only that, but just the design of Berserk, so many things have to line up. And not only that, but it hinges on, like, so many things happening that are completely out of your hindsight, basically, because you have to, like, play a pulping and then discard a card that doesn't, like, say you have 2 wild rides or something, and, like, you play one of them. Well, if you discard the other one, you're screwed, right? Because that was your whole plan, was you were going to go wild ride, and keep drawing and so forth, right? So there's just so many unknown factors with the Berserk plan. It is extremely strong. Don't get me wrong. You can kill somebody out of nowhere. That's just how that game plan works. I think that the default loadout equipment for KO is going to be Scabbies on the bottom. He's going to run the Apex Bonebreaker on the arms, Tunic, plus I think you have to run Fleshbag. It's just the best head equipment in the game, probably. Other than maybe one of them Ninja Mask. But, I mean, Fleshbag is insane, and you're never running Knucklehead. It's not happening. Right? And the way that I personally built my KO list, I have it sampled at the top. I named it Can't Clap. But I built it on the basis of, like, a play a pulping wild ride Tunic into this. Oh, I can't do that. Let me just Bare Fangs for 8 on 2 cards plus 1 might. That's a 2-card 9, right? And just make those plays and play it very mid-rangey. Be able to block, occasionally, cast bones, and then play a CNC for 12 is kind of cool. Like, a lot of things like that. Raw meat is a genuine consideration as a sideboard piece for KO. Okay, let's look at it. So it's very easy to obtain. So you're basically saying the conditional extra 2 block outweighs the Tunic. I think that if you run, I see what. So back when Lightning Briar was the thing, right? The first US Nats, the one that Tarek won. It was the general consensus that you ran Tunic because you play a bunch of 0 cost and you Tunic counter Rosetta Thorn. That was the idea of it. It's how you extract the most value from the deck. Can't clap. That's what I named my KO list. Yeah. He can't. He cannot. So I ran at US Nats, the first one. I ran Tunic in the sideboard, but Scalata in the main board. And it had nothing to do with the effect on it because I was not that great of a player at that point. But I just wanted the extra block value because of my game plan into most of my matches. I played Channel Mount Heroic Briar back then, before it was the hotness, and back when everybody was doing unfair things. And yeah, I tried to utilize, and that was always there. It was static, right? And I don't know. I think that I was going to say that if you win because with Ball Breaker, if you don't have Tunic, it's a terrible plan. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, the only time you get paid off is if you discard, like, a Skull Crack or something, right? It's the only way you get paid off. This, I mean, if there was one matchup where you just had to have some armor, like, I don't know, Azalea or something, is the only thing where it's like, I don't know, you already have so much armor. You have what, six, eight plus nine on tunic, so you have nine armor. Is going to 11 really worth giving up that additional resource throughout the game? I mean, maybe. I don't see it. I'll put it that way. I just don't see it. But that's why you said hot take. So I could be wrong. We'll see. We will see. What I do know is the extra block on Knucklehead is not worth flesh bag. That much I know. This card is actually insane. And I will tell you who this card is best against. And the answer to that question is Guardian. I can't tell you how many times in my testing games where I've gotten like an agility, or I've played like Wild Ride, and it's like very face up, then I'm just Wild Ride, Tunic, Ball Breaker, right? And they block with their Civic Steps on the Wild Ride because they know I'm going to waste the Quicken token, right? And then I swing Ball Breaker and then play Cast Bones and literally watch them fall apart as a human being. And it's the best feeling in the world, right? The card is actually insane. Now, with that being said, there are some very important ratios that you need to be utilizing when using this card. I think that the appropriate number of non-sixes, now that's factoring in Kayo's ability, so we're counting fives as sixes. I think the appropriate number is only 8 misses. 8 to 9 is like top of where I want to be. I prefer to be at 6, but I think 6 to 9 is the sweet spot. 6 to 9 is where you want to be as far as misses. So basically, what that means is you get 3 Cast Bones, 3 Blood Rush Bellows, and then if you have another pet card that you think is really worth it, maybe No Fear on the sideboard, or if you're a lead with speed fan, or you just can't get away from Pummel, or I don't, whatever. Something that's not a 6. I think 6 to 9 is that real sweet spot for KO in my testing. Send Packing is another amazing card. Basically, what it allows you to do is it's another copy of CNC that comes in yellow. You're just trading the red pitch for it costing 1 more. So it's the exact same rate. It is a brute action, so it's affected by Blood Rush Bellow and all those brute effects. But more importantly, specifically in the Azalea matchup, it basically just removes the card from Arsenal, so they are not allowed to dominate the arrow. Or, I'm sorry, they are allowed to dominate the arrow. It's just way more difficult for them to do so, right? Because they're not, it's very difficult for them to place an arrow. There's very few ways they can do that. And then flip and use the whole Skullbone Cross Wraps, right? So even if this does not hit, it still disrupts Azalea, which is one of your worst matchups. So this is a amazing card in that regard. I think that there's not really a whole lot of reason why you should not be on 3 of these. Now, if you are building your deck around this and you're in that 6 to 9 ratio, I think this card is amazing. Yeah, clears the arsenal, and you are 90% of the time safe from dominate, which is the only thing you're really scared of, because a lot of your deck blocks pretty decent, and you have a lot of armor, right? No Fear, I have actually loved, because you have the ability to, if it's in arsenal, this card can block for 6. Once again, if you're building your ratios correctly. Let's say you're in a dominate situation. You can still block 1 card, then play No Fear, and it still blocks 4. So it's a D react, right? That works around dominate, overpower, all those different effects, right? Or CNC even. So I think this is a very flexible card, and if you're staying in that high range of sixes, I think it's just worth it as a defensive value option. Plain and simple. Uh, I would never play this card. I don't know what else to say. Pack Call is great, increases your consistency with your wild rides and things like that. I love the blue one. Absolutely love the blue one. Maybe would play the yellow one, but I don't think it's necessary in KO specifically. The Bear Fangs is a amazing card in KO. Absolutely amazing, because I described it earlier. If you look at just on a sheer value standpoint, right? You're pitching your yellow or your blue, and it's a 2-card 8, right? But then when you're discarding the card that you drew, which doesn't factor into a loss for your value, you get +1 might from KO's. You get a might token from KO's ability, which makes it a 2-card 9. That's really good in Flesh and Blood. Yes, there is no number at this bottom right corner, and that's the price you're paying for this above rate card, right? It does not block. Does that come up? Absolutely. And that's why it can be a little ambitious to run the red and the yellow, but that is a decision. That's up to you. How mid-range do you want to be, right? It's just an above rate card no matter what color it's in, except for blue. Blue kind of sucks. But red and yellow, I would understand. I'm personally just on the reds, but I wouldn't laugh at you if I saw a yellow one. We don't care about Intimidating KO, Wild Rides, and All-Star. I think you should be on red and yellow, especially if you're on the Ball Breaker plan. I think it is an absolutely amazing card through and through. Does everything you want, okay? So in KO, we talked about the equipment suite. We talked about preferred weapons. We talked about, let's go down in the hybrid cards in the root section. See if we missed anything. Okay, so you have a couple options for the hybrid cards. You can run Clash of Might or Clash of Agility. I think Clash of Agility is perfectly fine. Depending on how your deck is built, if you're really high on those sixes, like I mentioned before. The one thing that I will say is this: you need to build your deck in a way where you can side this card out if need be. Like, it doesn't need to be in a critical spot that can't move in or out of the sideboard. The reason I say this is you don't want to be playing this card against Guardian or the Mirror Match or anything like it can just cause a lot of trouble. So just be careful and understand the risk associated with the card. Although I will say I believe KO clashes better than any other hero in the game, even better than Victor and Bravo, because I think that the massive breakpoint is 6. I think that, a lot of Bravo's poppers are 6 attacks, and your quote-unquote poppers are 7. So I think on average, probably KO is like a 65% favorite in clashing with the Guardians, which is a really good spot to be. This card is great in KO, especially in blue and yellow. It just has some built-in turn 1 high roll. It's still a popper. It still turns on all the effects. There's no real risk, associated with these cards. I'm a fan of Lead with Speed. However, the more I play with it, the more I realize that it can just put you in some spots. But it's very strong. Like, it's a very strong card. I'm not doubting that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Also, chat, if you have any questions about what I'm going over, or like, well, what about this card in KO? Throw it in chat. I would love to get to it. I'll answer every question I possibly can. So I am a fan of Lead with Speed in KO. This is like one of those cards that you could entertain in being your seventh, eighth, or ninth non-popper, right? Is kind of the spot that I see lead with speed being in. Um, Another contender for that spot, believe it or not, is Rouse the Ancients. I know that sounds silly on the surface, and in testing, I did move away from it. I just wanted to put it out there and say that it is an option, right? If you think about it, like, why would you play Rouse the Ancients? Well, in a KO deck, most of your blues are 5 attack, right? But in KO, they're 6. And any of your yellow or red cards are 6 or 7, right? So basically, if you have any red card and any blue card that are attacks, your Rouse is turned on, right? And I think that is, that's like pretty decent. Zealous belting, or I just went over Rouse, but Zealous I think is a trap. Zealous is a trap because you don't have like the payoff on the end, right? Like when Bravo does it, he goes 5 into 6, make a surge, right? So that's like a value of 12 on 3 cards. That's 4 value per card. But KO is like Zealous into Claw or Ball Breaker for 3. Like, it's just not good, right? So, not a big fan of Zealous Belting, although I like, that you're considering off the wall options. A couple of other cards that I've played around with is Ravenous Rabble, E-Strike. All of these cards are your go again options that are still considered poppers in red. Which is pretty good. I'm a lot higher on E-Strike than I am Rabble, obviously, but it is something you can consider. If you're building your KO deck and you're playing against, I don't know, Illusionists, and you're like, man, I really could use more go again, try Rabble. It might work, it might not. Just understand what your blue count is and how much you're risking, put it in a hypergeometric calculator, and go from there. But E-Strike I've really enjoyed E-Strike because if you have an agility token, it's just straight value. Straight value. How often do you think KO will be wagering in CC? Yeah, non-popper sixer. That is the correct nomenclature, but I'm just going to say popper because it's easier. But yes, you're correct. If you put a 5 down, it does not pop something because once it goes onto the combat chain, it loses the +1. How often do you think KO will be wagering in CC? My guess is 0. If I'm being honest, because the cards with wager built on them, I don't think really go into the game plan, right? Like, this has no cohesion with your weapon. It has no cohesion with like your Blood Rush Bella. Yes, it's a brute attack, but like it's a 3 cost. Like, it just doesn't play well with any other card, really. It's just a 3 for 7. And I don't think you can win a game of Flesh and Blood anymore by blocking 6 and swinging 7. I think those days are gone. I know it looked like we were heading that direction, but I don't think that is the case. You need to be doing more. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I don't think KO will be wagering at all in Classic Constructed. I've been trying to use Flock of the Featherwalkers alongside Runner. When the stars align, it's good. It's a bit clunky. I would not run Flock in KO because you run so many 2s and 3s, right? I love Flock as a card. It's one of my favorite. But it's even when the deck is designed, right, around, like, it can handle that card, like say something like Briar, it's still a clunky card because it doesn't have go again. It cost 1. You have to have the 1 cost that you're willing to arsenal, and it's just so many things have to go right. I'm curious about your KO game plan. What lines do you play in cards you're trying to abuse? But that could wait until after the card review. Simply trying to absorb the win. Yeah. So I'll go over it a little bit. I'm not gonna spend like a whole bunch of times, but basically, like I mentioned before, like my bread and butter plays are gonna be Wild Ride, Tunic Counter, Ball Breaker. Like I'm trying to accomplish that, and I've integrated things like, you know, what's the Skull Crush, right, or Skull Crack, whatever the one where you, if you discard it, you get +1 resource, right? I've integrated those into the list to allow me to do that without Tunic Counter, right? I've also added some 1 cost things like Savage Swing, stuff like that, to fill that gap for when I don't have Tunic Counter. Because whenever you synergize the build of a deck around the usage of Tunic Counter, what you need to do is you need to say, okay, I'm trying to do this with Tunic Counter. Okay, you need to build the deck in a way to where exactly 1/3 of your ratio is doing this, but 2/3 of your ratio is operating on a different curve, right? And that's where like lead with speed into Bear Fang come in. Like I'm trying to do those plays while Tunic Counter is not up, and then when Tunic Counter is up, I'm trying to Wild Ride pulping into a Ball Breaker. Is kind of like the way I'm trying to approach the game. It might drop consistency, but have you thought of Art of War at all? It's not good enough for me personally. I haven't really tried it, I'm going to be honest, so maybe I'm shooting it down before. The problem is, I'll tell you the problem with Art of War. It's the fact that I'm already running pulping, red and yellow Wild Ride, and red Bear Fangs. That is 12 cards that do not block at all. They cannot go in the combat chain defensively, right? And I don't want to make that number 15. So even if Art of War was good, I don't think it would be good enough to add another no block to the deck. And there's no way it's better than Wild Rod pulping or Bear Fangs. That much I know. So that's kind of how I look at that card. Okay, any more questions on Kayo? I think that kind of like sums it up. I don't think there's that much more going on. That's kind of like where I've been going as far as Kayo. But like I said, if anybody has any questions about Kayo while I'm going over something else, I'll get to it. No worries. We'll go. So let's go ahead and talk about Rhinar. This one's going to be really quick because we're just talking about like ideas on like what to add because he's pre-existing, right? I think the last thing that we saw from Rhinar that like did really well at a tournament, I think was like Michael Fang's Battle Hardened list. I think I could be wrong on that. No, because that was before Worlds. So it would be the one that got what 9th or 10th at Worlds. That would be like the most recent successful Rhinar list we have, right? Which is like a very mid-rangey, wait for Bellow, blow them up kind of situation. So what are some cards that are going to help Rhinar? Well, if you're not leaning on Scabbies a lot, Apex is an obvious upgrade. Oh yeah, the new Rhinar art is probably one of my favorite hero arts. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's like the same hero, but it's different. I'm not entirely sure. I do miss him holding the goat, but it is what it is. I saw some people playing around with Mandible Claw and Ball Breaker. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I do not understand that thought process. If I'm playing Rhinar, I'm trying to play this very mid-rangey, extract as much value as possible from Blood Rush Bellow. And the most consistent way to the extract value from Blood Rush Bellow is claw, claw, attack. It's so consistent. All you need is like two resource cards. One can even be yellow, and you can usually do it, right? It's just so consistent, right? And if you throw Ball Breaker in there, yes, you can do some more mid-rangey stuff on the in-between, but you just lose so much value on that turn that you just, I don't know. I think the whole reason you're playing Rhinar is Claw Claw. As simple as that. That's my opinion, though. That's my opinion. What's up, Michael? Good to see you. Those pack muscles. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Let's see. I think Rhinar changes a lot with the addition of agility tokens. It possibly could. The question, Zachary, that you have to ask yourself is, are you going to be able to utilize the agility tokens better than Kayo? And if you're not, then you really got to like ask yourself the question of like, what am I doing, right? So I think that the end result of Rhinar as a hero will be basic. I don't think Rhinar is going to change his identity, because if you're wanting to play a more aggressive game plan, I think the other two brutes just do it better. I hate to say, like, if you're doing a very aggressive game plan, Rhinar basically has no hero text, because if you're racing somebody, intimidating them does nothing, right? So that is my opinion. I could be wrong. Not sure if this was covered earlier, but thoughts on Savage, Beatdown, and KO. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It was the first card I tried in KO. I was like, bro, I'm trying to get somebody for 12. Quick. Go again. Like, I tried. And when I say I tried again. And when that one didn't work, I tried a third time. And then I thought about trying a fourth time, and then I talked with some sense into myself, and I fucking dropped that card. So it's just not like, I want Savage Beatdown to be so good, but it wasn't. It was so situational. You needed like just. It could have been the way that I was building the deck. I'm going to revisit it because, like I said, I want that card to be good so bad, but I just don't like. Let's talk about it real quick. So, Savage Beatdown. You can only play it if you've already discarded a 6, right? And then as an additional cost, you have to discard another 6, right? So you basically have to have 2 blues in your hand, and then you have to go through a discard effect with that doesn't hit your blue, right? Because if you have 2 blues and you do your random discard effect and you hit your blue, you're screwed, right? So I just, like, I don't, it goes against who I am as a player. Could you get it to work? Probably. Like, I think you honestly could. I think it's possible. But the way that my brain works as a player, I'm all about value, consistency, things like that now. A younger me would maybe play that card, but I can't get to it now. I'm too wise for that shit. Nothing better than a Crawford stream. I appreciate you being here, Sam. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Hopefully you'll be at Hartford. Are you going to be there, Sam? Let me know. Anything you've seen for Levia? I'm going to touch on Levia a little bit at the end. Well, I guess we're talking about brutes right now, so we'll kind of, after I'm done with Rhinar, I'll go over Levia for a little bit. The evasion of Intimidate adds a lot of virtual advantage to a 3-card 12/3, like Runner plus Tunic into Pack Hunt is an example of the kind of line. It does, but once again, if somebody is racing you, right? If you're playing, because at the very beginning of a match, 2 players, while not knowing that they're subconsciously doing this, they are mentally agreeing on a speed of play, right? Either both people say we're blocking and it becomes a very long game, or one person says they're blocking, which forces the other person to not block, right? Or you're both just smacking each other, right? Your game plans are going to collide and one of those will result, right? Well, if you're racing, right, which would be approximately anywhere between 35 to 45% of Rhinar's matchups, you have no hero text, because if somebody is racing you, most of the time they're not blocking. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that like maybe they have an extra blue card that blocks for 3 and you intimidate it. Sure. But the problem with that situation is you have to hit both of those cards to get any value, because they will just block with the other one. And if it was their only blue, well, they weren't blocking with it anyway. So like the intimidate in and of itself does not render any value. Now, are there cards that if you've intimidated get this? Sure. But it's not really the aggressive spot that I want to be at. When I said I tried again. Hoping to be. If so, it'd be a last minute tie. Yeah, I didn't decide till today that I was going. So it was last second for me. If I'm being honest, the reason why I was on the fence about Connecticut was I was worried that there was going to be like some type of built-in like Evo situation with the seal pool, and I just didn't want to deal with that, to be honest, if I'm being 100% frank. However, after seeing the set, I don't think any of that exists. Are there going to be some sealed pools that are way better than others? Of course, but it's not like this linear, did I open 3 Evos? Oh, I didn't. Okay, can't play Teklovos. You know, like, it was just so, like, linear and obvious. It just wasn't very, you know. Yeah, great way to put it. Rhinar has no hero text versus 5. That's basically, you know, what I'm getting at. Is in any aggro matchup, you're fighting somebody without a hero text, which is why I don't think he's going to abandon his identity. Obviously, he's going to, if you don't lean into the Scabbies as much, you're playing a much more mid-range game plan. You're going to run Apex just because it's just on the surface a lot more value. Three block. Most of the time, you can easily extract the might token because a lot of your stuff is 6s. Send packing, like we discussed earlier, it's just disruption that Brute previously did not have. I think Show No Mercy is a direct replacement for Alpha Rampage in most cases. There could be a situation where you run 3 of these, maybe 1 or 2 of the Alphas, and not cut them completely. But I think this is just a more convenient card that almost accomplishes the same thing. It's kind of like what my thought process on that. I think this is a great card for Rhinar. Beat chest into Shadowpede seems good. That is a fact. It does seem good. Cast Bones in Rhinar, I think, is a trap. You're going to run way too many non-6s, right? Because there's so many non-6s that are built into Rhinar's resource base, right? Things like Dig Up Dinner. Like half of his blues are not 6s because the only blue 6 he has access to is what I don't even remember, Wrecker Romp or whatever the card is. For the same reason, I think this is not a card for Rhinar. If you've intimidated this turn, get +2. I mean, it is like it's so situational for not really any return. So not a big fan on that one. I think this one's pretty good because you get a double intimidate on this card if you play it in Rhinar. So it's actually a very easy way to play a barraging beatdown into this and get an immediate 3 trigger intimidate, right? So I think this card is decent. I would probably look at the way that I would look at this card as a Rhinar player would be, I don't want people fatiguing me. Let me look at this card. I don't think this is a very good card that puts on offensive output, but if you're struggling with a fatigue matchup, maybe Victor or something like that, this could be a great alternative. Is the way that I look at this card. Obviously, just in red. Assault and Battery. This is going to be solely dependent on how your Rhinar deck is built. I don't think Rhinar is going to be able to utilize agility as much as Kayo, but it's something that you're going to have to analyze. The reason, I know a lot of people are probably wondering, why does Kayo utilize agility better? And the answer to that question is, you take Rhinar, he runs a bunch of yellows because that's the only way he can get 6s into his resource pool. Therefore, he doesn't have blues, which means he can't spill over resources into the second thing that he is trying to do with said agility token, right? Whereas Kayo can run no yellows if he wanted because he has access to so many 6 blues to where he has excess resources to do whatever he wants, which is why Kayo utilizes agility better than Rhinar. Pack Hunt's always been a staple in Rhinar. A Beat Chest is okay. I think the Intimidate one's the only one I'm really looking at. I don't think the Might. Like, you never want to convert. Beat Chest is just better in KO because you get an additional benefit of discarding that card. AKA the 1 might token, right? So you always get a refund of 1 value on the discarded card. Whereas Rhinar does not. It's literally, this card reads 2 for 7, but you have the chance to discard 1 card, intimidate, create a might token. So you have to ask yourself, how many times in a game is 1 card worth 1 value plus an intimidate? To me, that doesn't sound like a very good deal. So with the exception of Rawhide Rumble, from a Rhinar perspective, I'm going to try to stay away from Beat Chest. Unless it was incorporated in my anti-fatigue strategy. That is the way I would approach those cards. Let's go to the hybrids. Like I said, it doesn't utilize lead with speed that much. Agile windup doesn't even look that good for Rhinar. Like the Rhinar deck list is so tight. Like there's so many ratios that have to be 100% correct that I just don't know where you would fit these cards in, if I'm being 100% honest. I'm not waging with anybody. Yeah. I don't see it. So I think for Rhinar, we're taking the old deck list that we've had for so long. We're adding Sin Packing, Show No Mercy, and then Rawhide Rumbler as an alternative for anti-fatigue. Is kind of I know that's not the most climactic thing, and I hope there is some value in that, but it's a pre-existing hero that is kind of forced into a playstyle because the other 2 heroes in its class do the other thing better, right? It's just simple as that. That's just the unfortunate part about it. But if you prefer the long, mid-rangey game plan, then Rhinar is the perfect deck for you if you still want to play Brute. So I think he's just going to still do that game plan the best, and that's it. Simple as that. Oh, and then Apex as well, of course. So Apex, Sin Packing, Show No Mercy, and then Rawhide Rumbler as a supplemental card if you need it. So 3 to 4 upgrades in a set, solid, right? Way better than everybody got in the expansion slot, with the exception of Illusionist, because they got the most bonkers upgrade on the planet. So that covers all brutes. Let's touch on Levia real quick because we're already talking about brutes so much. Sorry, guys. I keep having to drink this water. I'm talking so fast, so many words. I'm trying to get out all this information and not be on the stream for 4.5 hours. So Levia, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think she's going to play Apex. I think the value on Gambler's Gloves is so instrumental to her game plan in the in-game state of what she is trying to do that she does not touch this card. Simple as that. That might disappoint a lot of people, but I think it's true. I think Levia does not touch Apex Bonebreaker. At least in the version that, like Ethan's deck. I don't think you would add this to Ethan's deck. It just doesn't make sense. You don't run Cast Bones. Sin Packing could be like an alternative if you're trying to fix like the Azalea matchup. It's not like an immediate include. I think that as far as not Azalea, but Levia is concerned, the two cards that I'm looking at the most, if I'm being honest, is anything that generates agility, right? Because anytime, the way that you look at agility in Levia is, I created an agility token. Great. Now I don't have to roll scabbies, which means you are inadvertently reducing the variance of your deck, right? So I would look at, if I was a Levia player, I would look at cards like Clash with Agility, right? Something very easy, just defend, make an agility, boom, don't have to roll scabbies. We're in there like swimwear, right? Easy. You could even, I mean, theoretically, you could run Take It on the Chin. I think, like, this is a popper, which can, like, turn off Blood Debt and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of cool. This is, like, a very desperate way to make an agility token in Levia, so I wouldn't lean toward that. I think Lead with Speed is fine. I don't know which color, but I think giving a pump plus an agility token seems pretty decent. So the three cards that I would be looking at in Levia is Clash with Agility, Agile Windup, probably yellow in this card. So red Clash with Agility, yellow Agile Windup, and one of the colors of Lead with Speed. Those are the three cards that I'm looking at. Those are the three cards that I'm looking at with Levia. That is what I'm considering. I noticed you didn't mention Reckless Swing and Kayo. Thoughts on that? So I did mention that you have anywhere between 6 to 9 slots in a consistent KO deck that are not 5 attack or higher. And I mentioned that it's an auto include for Cast Bones and Blood Rush Bellow, right? So you really only have 3 copies of something. And Reckless Swing could be one of those cards. It's entirely plausible. Is it worth it? Maybe. It's possible, but one copy would not be the end of the world because it wouldn't really mess up with your wild rods and stuff like that because you're always pitching your blue anyway. So it's usually not that big of a deal. I could roll with one. I could roll with that. Did you ever go over Agile Windup in Rhinar? I just don't think Rhinar uses agility well. I don't, unless you built like a agility based 1 cost into club Rhinar deck. Like, I don't know how agility, like, because the only turn you really want go again is Blood Rush Bellow, and you can't invest 10 to 20 things into your deck to get a payoff on just 3 turns, right? Unless it's just busted, like Lumina or something in Bolton. So I just don't like this card in Rhinar. If I'm building a Rhinar deck, I'm not going out of my way and playing a lesser card, aka the block value, to make an agility token that's very difficult to use. Unless you're just going off the wall, starting over and saying, I'm going to build a 1-cost club deck that needs go again. And like you're trying to like play Savage Swing into club or Savage Feast into club, or what are some other 1-cost brewed? I don't know. mud clap into close. I don't know. Um, like that. If that was your game plan, if you're trying to build a deck like that, I don't think that's optimal. But if you were to pursue that in deck building, then I would start saying, all right, let's find us some agility. But I just don't think Rhinar uses agility well. I really don't. So I'm not trying to put it in. Okay, so that covers all things Brute. If you missed any of it, feel free to hop in chat, and I would love to, go over it. But yeah, let's go ahead and hit whatever is next, and that is Guardian. Okay. Let me pause for a second and discuss something. So at the end of my last stream, which at the time of doing so, we only had 20% of the set. I ranked the heroes as Kayo and Kasai, Betsy, Rhinar, Victor, Olympia. Those were like my 3 tiers. I said Kayo and Kasai were the best. Betsy and Rhinar were kind of mid, and then Victor and Olympia were the worst heroes in the set. Now that the whole set has been released, I think the current spots now are Kayo and Victor at the top. So I was right on Kayo. Unfortunately, I was wrong on Victor. And the main reason for that is I did not see the card Trounce and Test of Strength, I think it is. Is that the one that makes the gold token? The Clash card? Test of Strength. Would it be Clashing? I don't know. I don't know where it is. I think it's Test of Strength. I think it makes a gold token. It's a Clash card, whatever. So, I think that Victor has some insane value turn cycles. Some insane value turn cycles that really put him over the top. So I think that Victor and KO are the 2 best heroes in the set from a CC perspective. I think that in the middle is Rhinar and Kasai. So I was pretty much right on Rhinar. And then I think that Betsy and Olympia are the worst. That's where I would currently rank them. In case anybody was wondering, we're going to continue going down. We've completed Brute. And we're going to hit Guardian. Oh, man, the 3 blocks, right? Okay. Let's go ahead and hit Victor because it's easier, I think. Victor, in my opinion, is not a fatigue deck. I think it's a value-oriented deck that's 51% of the time might end in fatigue. That is my analysis of Victor. Okay. The arms are great. I think in most cases they are probably a strict upgrade from Crater Fist. I'm not saying that the ability on why did I fall for you? So when I see the -1, I think like Ancestral, like Guardian struggled into Ninja sometimes. And like having this card stops Art of War, Ancestral Empowerment, Breaking Scales, like so many cards that hard punish you. Victor is a dies to dragons deck. You want to try that again, Noah? You want to try that again? Um, we'll talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. 100%, because he does have a good point. He does have a good point. That is an intricate matchup. That Victor can win against a certain type of Dromai, but I don't think it wins against anything else. Overall, I do consider Dromai to be an unfavorable matchup for Sir Victor. Sledge or Anathos? I would say Anathos in the sideboard and then Miller and Shield in the main board if I'm going to run. No, I think I was very clear. Okay. I'll take your word for it now. So, like I said, gauntlets, I'm all for them. I think in every Guardian except Bravo, it's a no-brainer. You just run these. However, even in Bravo, I think these are better, if I'm being honest. The hat kind of sucks. You have to build around it. It's high value, but it's just not where you want to be. These cards are insane value. This is really good rate. If you play this after a trounce, you just win the game because it's so efficient. And this, like I mentioned in our set review for Guardian, is the lowest costed evasion with the highest number that Fab has ever printed. I know that's a lot of words, right? But you just can't get 10 damage with some type of evasion, dominate, overpower, at the what often will only cost 2 cards. You just historically have never been able to do that in the game of Flesh and Blood. That is what's unique about this card. Is it broken? I don't think so, but that's what makes this card unique. This card, you could argue, is I will not concede the point. I do not think this card is as good as Codex of Frailty, but it's close. It's close. So these 2 cards are really good. Golden Sun's auto include into all Victor decks. There's no reason not to run it. This one's not an auto include. Like maybe a few of them. I could see some lists without them. It just depends. Trounce, you have to run in every single list. It's just too good. The way you analyze the value on this card is when it blocks, right? So you get 3 value on block, right? And then you get a might, a vigor, so we're at 5 value, a gold, which I think you could value at 2 in Victor. So that's at 7 value. And then you draw a card because you have created a gold token, right? So on one card, you're getting 10 on average, 9 to 10 value, which is insane. Now, this is a conditional card, right? If you just lose one of the clashes, right? If you play this card and you reveal another clash card or like a block card, right? You're going to lose that clash or tie it or whatever. It doesn't matter. And you don't get anything. Now, you do have the hero ability that could back you up and redo one part of the clash. You have that ability. However, I've seen this miss I wouldn't say often, but quite a few times. I've seen this miss. So just because you play this does not mean you're getting 10 value. Just understand that. And the more cards that you put in your deck that are not at like the 5 to 10 or 5 to 6 attack range, you are directly impacting the value of this card because you're now looking at a 1 of 2 instead of a 1 of 1 in regards to a normal clash. Okay. But that's a very complicated way to say that this card is cracked, but it's somewhat conditional. Simple as that. On Sunday, I was trounced twice in the same chain link. Well, at least he can only draw 1 card if that happens, I think, because Victor's hero ability says once. The first time each turn, you create a gold token. So it's still good value, but at least he only draws one card when that happens. It could have been worse. It could have been worse. These are terrible. No way to put it. This is bad in Victor. Bad. I think a lot of people will play these cards, but they're bad in Victor specifically. Blue Thunk is the all-star. It is another copy of a blue 6 that Guardian now has access to, and it still blocks 3. So I think any Guardian deck that's running like 2 to 3 boulder drops, I think you just take those out, throw these in, and you are good to go. Definitely more hoops to jump through than Codex of Frailty. Exactly. That's the basis of that statement, is that I think you can very easily get 9 to 10 value out of Codex, and it's going to happen every single time. Which you can't say about Trounce, unfortunately. Other than that, let's go to the dual cards. What else is Victor looking at? What are some like higher profile cards? You could run Double Down. Once again, it's a non-attack. To run a non-attack in Victor, it has to do a job and do it so well that it has to be insane. Obviously, Victor is going to value a Vigor token more than a Might token. So if I'm going to run one of these Clash cards, it's going to be Clash of Vigor over Clash of Might. Maybe you run both. I don't know. You could even run the blue. Like having a 4 attack on your Clashes is not the worst place to be, right? Like you beat anybody that flips over anything that's not an attack. You still beat all of Ninja. You beat Warrior, right? You only lose to like stuff that runs a lot of 6s, like Illusionist and Brutes and stuff like that, and other Guardians. Clash of Vigor for a 1-card sledge. I'm not a fan of the sledge plan personally, which I know may shock some of you. Anybody that knows anything about me, I love consistent, value-oriented gameplay, and I understand the value of blocking with this card and then doing a 1-card 6 on the return, which would be a 2-card 9 is the way that would translate. The problem is this is not guaranteed, right? So let's say you don't win. That's your whole game plan, is you're trying to Clash with Vigor, swing sledge for 6, which is a 2-card 9. I am all for it. You block with 2 cards, and then you block with your Clash of Vigor, and guess what? You lose the Clash. Then you look at that blue in your hand, you question your life decisions, and you look at your opponent and say, pass turn, because you're not doing anything, right? And I don't think the upside of a 2-card 9 is worth having that conversation with your opponent. It just isn't, right? I want to be flexible, right? I don't want to like have to do a certain thing, right? And if you have Sledge of Anvilheim, that weapon is bad if you do not have a Vigor token. It is awful. I appreciate the concept and I respect it, but I ain't touching it. Simple as that. Test of Vigor is a good card. Box 4. Wager that Vigor token. Swing Golden Sun off 2 cards. We've talked about this. Vigor tokens in Guardian, you have the opportunity to roll them with Tectonic Plating, giving you 2 turns to actually realize the value of said Vigor token or resource, right? So you might be in a tough spot and you're like, you got to block your whole hand and you've created a Vigor token. And you're like, oh man, this is going to waste. No, you turn it into a Seismic Surge and then you use it the next turn, right? Don't miss out on those small windows of value and opportunity when we're talking about Guardian. Obviously, you don't have that opportunity when you are considering a Tunic-based deck, but Vigor goes farther with plating. Remember that. Okay, what else are we talking about with Guardian? We don't have access to agility because that would just be stupid with Anathos. Um, that's really like what I see for Victor is like there was some generics. Yeah, this card is dumb, right? You're blocking for draw a card. That seems good. That's basically how this reads, right? Because if you win the clash, you get the gold. You've created a gold. You trigger Victor's hero ability, and you draw a card, right? Insane value. I'm mad late, but it makes sense. Lannister loses to dragons. I mean, that does make sense. That does make sense. Funny how that works out, right? So in Victor, I think the two strongest cards are going to be Test of Strength and Trounce. I don't think that's revolutionary. I didn't find that concept under a rock. I think that's pretty low-hanging fruit. I think everybody knew that. The value that I can offer is in the ratios. You know, like historically, Bravo has ran anywhere between like 34 to like 38 blues. I've seen it as high as. I think Victor's going to be on a lower blue count. I don't know how much. I don't know if he's going to be at 25 or 30 or 33. I don't know. I'm just saying that you're not paying for Crippling Crush. You're not paying for Starstruck. There's less things that you need more blues for. So just using rational thought process, I think he will have less blues than Bravo. Any card that does not have a decent attack value on it, you need to look at that card and say, does this card increase my win percentage by a decent number? If the answer is no, get it the hell out of your deck because you are hindering Trounce, you are hindering Test of Strength, you're hindering your Clash of Might, Clash of Vigor if you choose to run those. You know, all those different cards. You're like really just messing with those cards. If not Sledge, do you think Victor will run? Yeah, Anathos on the sideboard and then Shield and Grindstone main. Run Anathos against like other Guardians and like the really grindy matchups, which sounds hypocritical, right? You would want the Grindstone and the grindy matchups. It's actually the opposite, I think. That pretty much does it up. I think Victor's going to have a lot of success in the next month. I think when people kind of learn how to play against the deck, I think the success will drop off a little bit. But as of right now, I think he's a solid contender for the meta. And you'll definitely need to have a game plan against him. Simple as that. Okay. Let's talk about Betsy. Good old Betsy. Okay. I think I had high hopes for Betsy. I really did. I said, to quote myself exactly, I said if there were a lot of lines where she could play something and swing Anathos and do like the zealous belting rouse interactions, if there's a lot of ways that she could do that she would be a really strong hero. Unfortunately, she did not get that toolkit in this set. Will she get it later? Maybe. I don't know. I think Betsy boils down. It's actually a very simple hero. Contrary to popular belief. I think it is, when you're deck building with Betsy, it's the simple art of taking a card that has a relevant on-hit effect and trying to give it a wager effect, right? Because of a lot of the cards that already have pre-built-in wager just kind of suck, right? Like, there's nothing exciting about this card. Who gives a shit if you give this overpower? Let's be honest. What, you're gonna 2-card 8 me? On hit get 1? I don't give a shit. Right? Like that's Oh, I'm sorry, 3-card. It's a 3-card 9 is basically the way it translates to. Just block with your cards and save each other some time. Right? That's kind of my thought process. So when I went to start deck building with Betsy, I looked at cards like this and I was like, man, this just isn't doing it. It's just not like Wage Gold is probably the only wage like card with wage built in other than her specialization. Obviously, you're running the specialization, but like pre-built in with wager, this is like the Wage Gold's probably the only one. It's the only one worth going, right? Simple as that. So this is like the only one I'm excited about, and it's because this gold token would fuel the little Betsy hat. Right? Where's the Betsy hat? Where's the Betsy hat? This one. This lies all the power of Betsy in one piece of equipment. Okay? Mauve Skies Wage Gold. Well, then they're definitely blocking it. Betsy feels like Walmart Bravo without crippling. Pay 2 for overpower instead of dominate. Yeah, like Teklo said. Teklo basically exactly what I said, right? You're taking cards with good on-hit effects and trying to give them wager. Okay? Now, we are going to talk about how that introduces something very bad. Okay? So, the easiest way to give anything wager is this card right here. You trade a gold, it does not break the item, and you give, it just says next attack, so it can be weapon, attack action, whatever the case would be. It doesn't even say guardian attack. And you give it a might and vigor wager. Okay? Now, the problem with that is you have to have gold, right? And gold's the hardest one to make, right? So your only real easy access to making gold is going to be, where's the card? Money where your mouth is. This card. Okay? Now, it's kind of hot to throw this on a CNC and give it overpower. Right? The problem with that play is it's what? 4 cards? It would be a 4-card 10 with overpower on a CNC. On hit, make a gold. So to be at rate, you need to extract 13 value from that play. Okay? So if you're coming in for 10 with 4 cards, on hit, destroy their arsenal. Let's say it hits every time. Okay, now you're at 13, right? To be at rate. So you go slightly above rate by acquiring the gold. Okay? That's actually the only above rate thing about that play. Okay? But giving overpower buffs seems, yep. I don't know if you see my list, but I've gotten enough gold generation off test of strength money where you. Yeah. Yep. I was gonna go over test of strength as well. Rainbow money where your mouth is. The CNC feels like Betsy might become. Yeah, but it just. Yeah, Trounce is good, obviously, but see, here's the problem, right? If you're running 9 copies of money where your mouth is, how does this card win? How does Trounce win? Right? I honestly implore you to go into a hypergeometric calculator. Just type it in, right? Just Google hypergeometric, and you type in 60 card deck, sample 2, hits what? Maybe 30? Right? And you have to win both, right? The odds on that is going to be like 40%, right? It's going to be pretty bad. And to get For this card, 60% of the time to be a red 3 block that can't even be leveraged in an offensive manner is a pretty bad card because you're having to run. And this is what I was talking about. I said that having to give things wager is going to come at a cost. And we're going to call this, you guessed it, chat. We're calling it the Rune Blade tax. Okay? Anybody who knows anything about me, I've played a lot of Rune Blade, right? What do I mean when I say the Rune Blade tax? What I mean is Rune Blades operate in a manner where they run a very tight ratio between attack action cards and non-attack action cards. And if you ever violate that, the deck is dead, right? You have to build your mana base mainly in your non-attacks, but then your red non-attacks are some of your most powerful cards, and then you have just a slew of red attacks mainly, is generally the construction of a Rune Blade deck, right? And you have the problem where you can draw either multiple attacks or multiple non-attacks, right? And not drawing one or the other. So Betsy introduces that concept, the Rune Blade tax, into, you know, it throws it into a Guardian deck, right? Like, if you draw 3 of these, or 3 cards like this in the same hand, it's a bad hand, right? And we broke down the mathematics on, like, putting a red money where your mouth is onto a CNC, which is probably the strongest thing you could do. And like, you're only above rate by 1 gold token. That's assuming the CNC was successful, right? So then you start thinking about, what else could I do? Playing Betsy. Well, you can start talking about cards like Erase Face, Censor, Coax, Snatch. I think the best play is not CNC with money where your mouth is. I think the best play that Betsy can make is literally money where your mouth is on a Snatch. And then give it over power for 8. I think that is the best line that Betsy has access to. Because it's just high enough to where it's going to hit. It has 2 on-hit effects. It's a 3-card investment, right? It's a 3-card 8. Wait, what? Yeah, +1, plus this, that's 4 on 4. That's an 8 value attack. On hit, make a gold, and draw a card. So the card that you draw is worth 3. So you're at a 3-card 11. That is a good attack. Exude? I mean, that's not really the on. I like the evasion aspect of it, but makes sense. Low-key, the Anathos line is the only time I use this card from testing. Yeah. Sometimes if it lines up, you CNC, but the 10 overpowering the weapon is not. Yeah. So like, and that's like the bread and butter, right? Like, you activate this, you activate the hero ability off of 1 blue pitch, then you swing Anathos, right? For 10. On hit, make a wager. So it's a 3-card 10, make a gold. That is a decent play. The problem is doing it above rate is only in the red, and you only have 3 of those, right? So if you, yeah, you're right. The Anathos 10 might, it actually is better than the Snatch. The Anathos 10 is better than the Snatch. The problem is that you only have 3 copies of the red, and if you run a bunch of these, like, you're going to start getting diminishing value. Performance bonus? All right, we're reaching. We're reaching on that one. A Rune Blade built Guardian. All I'm hearing is Nathan a Betsy main now. No shot. No shot. It's like a 3-card 12 because you seismic with the line as well. if you value gold at 1. How do you seismic? Money where your mouth is costs 1. Hammer costs 3. Betsy costs 2. There's no room for a seismic unless we're talking about something else. Unless you're talking about popping the gold and using that as using the floating. So there are some cute plays that Betsy can make. Money where your mouth is specifically on. Now, you can also you could do the same play that we're talking money where your mouth is on the whatever wager version that Guardian has access to, which would be, where is it? No, not wage figure. Where you at? Where you at? Where's the one that gives the wage? Here, like this version. I know this is the Warrior version, but there's one that's in Guardian as well. And it would be the same cycle, right? So theoretically, Betsy has access to 9 copies of red versions. The problem is the gold is worth way more than a Vigor or a Might token is, because it turns on the hat. And once again, we don't really have the ability to be clashing in Betsy. I think you can, and it might pay off sometimes, but it might pay off sometimes, but I think you're going to get hard punished in some tough spots by trying to clash with Betsy if you're trying to run all of those type of cards. I think it's very, very risky, to say the least. Yeah, so I understand the potential that Betsy has. I just can't, while Bravo is around, and I hate to say this because it just like discounts the hero to 0 when I make the statement, but like when Bravo is an option, I don't understand chasing Betsy as a hero I'm going to play in Classic Constructed. This card's great. The hat's great. The problem is you're incorporating shitty block values in the form of 2 blocks to do something that's slightly above rate, but at the same time, by doing so, you're adding so much inconsistency to your deck because you're incorporating, hard ratios of non-attacks and attacks and so forth. Overpower. Yeah, it's overpower. Like, if D-Reacts ever heavily, like, you thought D-Reacts hurt. You thought D-Reacts hurt players like Dorinthia and stuff like that. An Unmovable wins the game against Betsy on the spot. Period. You throw in a 2-block in armor and throw down an Unmovable from Arsenal, you've won the game. Because not only have you stopped their gold generation, but you got it, right? It's like such a value swing. It's literally like you did the same play on defense to them. It's actually insane how hard Betsy can get shut down, not only by just D-Reacts, but just block cards, reaction cards, in the form of attack reactions, right? Like Warrior just going to dumpster Betsy because Overpower basically has no text. It's just kind of sus. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. You're taking on a lot of risk to do something slightly good, and I just don't think that's where you want to be in Flesh and Blood. I'm sorry if there's any Betsy fans. I mean, I don't think she's the worst hero in the game. Like, I don't think she's that level of bad. I just cannot. I sat down and have a conversation. I even wrote out on a piece of paper. I was like, pros and cons of Bravo, pros and cons of Betsy, and like they had similar, but Betsy just had way less pros, and I just can't. When Bravo LLs is where her serious conversation occurs. Yeah, I agree with the people in chat. I think that is entirely possible. Entirely possible. Okay, so assuming that there is no other questions in chat about Guardian, we're going to move on to Warrior. Because why not, right? In fact, before we hit Warrior, I am going to be right back in like 2 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Just need a quick break. I'll be back in like 2 minutes, everybody. And then we'll go over Warriors. I'll be back in 2 minutes. All right. I am back. I'm back. And look at that. The viewer count didn't change an inch. Thank you guys for sticking out the 2 minute wait. I appreciate that. Also, one thing before we hop into Warrior, I am really glad that everybody joining me. I really do appreciate it. I think this is the first stream where I didn't do it on a Wednesday. So this is actually a really good experiment. I was kind of curious of like how many people were locked in like the routine schedule of hopping on the streams on Wednesdays. I was kind of worried about doing the stream today because I was like, man, what if like, you know, nobody's expecting it, or like, you know, everybody's just used to Wednesdays, and I was kind of worried about it. But thank you guys so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I try to do these streams in the most optimal way to give you as much value as I possibly can, in the best way possible. I know in a perfect world it would be clipped up into little videos with perfect editing and stuff like that, but given my time and schedule, this is the most efficient way that I can get the this is the most efficient way that I can get this type of content to you guys, and I really do hope you guys enjoy it, and I appreciate everybody being here. So let me get caught up in chat. She just seems like Bravo archetype successor. May it be quick. Yeah, the LL, yep. The funniest part of Betsy is she's the one guardian that'll beat tech load consistently. That's true. That's true. Sounds somewhere to OG. Yep. Honestly, I think she's tier 2. My most successful deck is basically a Bravo deck. Yep. So wager with Snatch, Coax, Exude, stuff like that. Pretend she's Briar. That's the dream. It's not going to be a good deck, but sure. Your whole deck's going to block for 13 value. Warrior time. Yep, we're about to hit that now. Gotta know if Kasai is busted. I think she's good, but not insane. We think alike. I'm so ready to play with Grains in Warrior. It's really a game changer. I agree. I think it's a very, very good card that is actually going to have. I think Grains is going to have almost the most skill expression in any singular card, other than maybe Become the Art Knight. Yep. It's also just gonna love resource management games. I'm loyal. Love this channel. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Might as well be Wednesday. I'm so tired. I was worried that when I hopped on, like I was gonna scare people, and people were like, "Oh shit, it's Wednesday." Hope I'm wrong, but I think the opportunity cost of play Grain is too high. Give up Tunic or Courage. Both are cracked. It's a very good consideration, and I think some decks will run one, some decks will run the other. But you are 100% right in analyzing that there is a very high opportunity cost there. Absolutely. Enduring, yeah. Courage is just too low value in Kasai. I agree with that notion. I do. So she can carry her value forward. Yep. Grains will always outshine Courage in Kasai. I do agree with that. I do. Is Dust's Path warranted in agility now? I love the fact that you're thinking in that way. I don't think it is, but I love the fact that because I also went there. I was like, oh yeah, we can do agility and then we can swing like a whole bunch of times, right? It's possible. It could be a neat interaction and way to force people to, like force people to interact with you, but it really depends. It really depends. Okay. Okay. Become the warrior. Yeah. If only. If only. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit it. Enough talking. Let's go ahead and get at it. Okay. Let's go to the warrior cards so we can chop it up. Okay. Let's talk about Kasai first, because it seems like most of chat is more interested in that. So that's why we're going to do Kasai. Let's talk about Kasai. We've already kind of chatted about Grains and how good it is. And I mentioned that it was probably the most skill expressive piece or card just in the game, period. Other than maybe Become the Art Knight. When you play this card, if your opponent is good and they understand all aspects of game, this induces a mind game, okay? Whenever an opponent or whenever a weapon attack you control hits, you may pay 1. If you do, create a vigor token. Okay. If you act, okay. Anybody, I've played a ton of matches against Warrior. Everybody knows that. Obviously, Josh. And one of the ways that you beat Warrior, whether it be Kasai, Dory, Bolton, anything, does not matter. It's all about knowing the resource curve and what could be next, right? For example, if you've done the analysis on the turn cycle and they have access to like 3 resources for their reactions, right? Then if you are familiar with Warrior cards and how they are played, you know that it could be Singing Stillblade Route, it could be Overpower, it could be double 1 cost reaction, it could be, like you know what they're limited to. And if they only have 1 resource, then you really know what they're limited to. It's basically Singing Stillblade into Glint, Puncture, or 1 cost 3 reaction. You know these things, right? The problem is if you activate this, you are telling your opponent In the second part of your combat chain, you're telling them exactly what you are not capable of doing, right? Let's say you activate this, and now you only have access to 2 spare resources instead of 3. Then there is zero reason that they would ever play around overpower, right? Because overpower costs 3. So when you use this piece of equipment, yes, it's amazing. It blocks 2. You can extract so much value. If they it's a great way to extract value when your attacks are disrespected, which in the current metas to be, that is a lot in regards to warrior. Most people do disrespect it. The problem is if you were taking a long turn, this would be in between the 2 swings in Dawnblade with Dory or in Kasai after the first weapon hit. If you activate this, you're actively giving me more information on what you're trying to do with the rest of the turn, which is going to factor into my decision points. Be mindful of that. There could be some tight spots where it's like you don't activate this even though you can because you don't want to give the information that you don't have anything, right? So just be very, very mindful of that. Just got in the chat, been working on Kasai, and I think Raisin Army is a trap. I don't think it's a trap, but it's not an amazing, amazing card. It's solid. I think Blood on Our Hands is way better than Raisin Army will ever be. I think it's a sideboard card at best, Raisin Army. Grain seems so bad, I don't get it. Well, once again, okay, so I just explained how activating grains gives your opponent information. But there's 2 parts to this story. On the following turn, your opponent has less information. Because in a situation where on the following turn, let's say you have access to normally 2 resources, but now you have 3. Well, on the previous turn, you told your opponent, I can't play overpower. But on this turn, the following turn where the vigor pops, we're just assuming like the same hand, scalability, whatever. You're basically telling your opponent, I could have anything. I could have overpower, whatever, because I have access to those resources. And then at that point, you have the opportunity to reinvest that resource. So you get the opportunity to bluff something you can't afford. And then if you need to, if they call the bluff, you can just reinvest it, right? Or you get value by them calling the bluff or not calling the bluff, right? There's a lot of intricacies involved in this piece of equipment. There's a lot that goes into it. I don't think Raisin Army is a trap because it's pretty easy to see it's a tech. Yeah. It's not something you're running in every single matchup, unless your yellow count is just like that tight that you're just using it as a yellow resource card or block 3. But you're not resolving it in a lot of matchups. And I think I said that on my initial analysis. I was like, even without seeing the card, the rest of the set, it's like you have to have such a good gold engine to get value from Raisin Army, and it's not easy to do that. Could the discussion making with grains look a lot like Brage Forge in the fact that you hold priority in the action step to decide if you're going to use the effect? Yeah, it's actually the same window, really, right? Like, are you asking, could the decision-making grains look a lot like... Yeah, it's the exact same. Brage for bracers, you're activating it, therefore you're giving me more information. You're buffing, but there's less things that you could have. Same concept, you just don't have the opposite side where you gain the resource on the other end and be able to bluff things, basically. Worst part of grains that makes shunt much worse. Yes, I'm sure Josh has went over this 1,000 times, but if you do not have Tunic in your list, Do not play Shunt. It is not good math. I think it's a trap. Because activating 3 gold throughout the game is often better value. I agree. Guess we have different definitions of what a trap card is. Well, in Yu-Gi-Oh! No, I'm just kidding. You mentioned earlier that you no longer believe Kasai is one of the top heroes and heavy hitters. Why did your opinion change? Does she seem worse? She seems. I thought the ceiling was going to be much higher. And I'll explain as we start talking about the cards, right? Don't get me wrong. I think she is like A tier at worst. She's not S tier, but like she's like tier 2. Like she is a solid hero that does good things. Very like difficult game plan to combat. She's good. I just thought she was going to be like, I thought she was going to be in contention to be like the deck, right? And I just don't think she's there. I think this is the most important card that Warrior got. I know this is crazy because we just spent so much time talking about grains and everybody's going to bring up Blade Fury and, you know, all these other like really, really strong cards that are just solid role players. But this card, anybody, all right. Everybody by now should know that anytime, if you ever need a way to beat fatigue, just ask me. I promise you, I can come up with something. I don't care if you only got $13 and 3 rubber bands. I will tell you how to beat a fatigue deck. Nothing. The first time I lost to a fatigue deck at a major tournament was Pat Esky, right? Part of the Runaways. And Pat's a great guy, right? Like, I talk to Pat at every event. I make sure to shake his hand. Amazing guy. We chat, you know, awesome. But like losing to that fatigue match just irked me because when you lose to a fatigue deck, 90% of the time it's your fault and your fault alone. And I knew that. I'm smart enough to know that. And when I lost that match, I was like, it was me. I could have done things better. All he did was throw 3s in front of my 3s, and that's it, right? I could have beat that, but I didn't, right? And it really irked me. And so I came up with multiple ways with every single hero to beat fatigue. And this is that answer for Warrior, right? Anybody that saw my How to Beat Fatigue stream, I talked about the end state, right? When you get to that when you get to that end part of the game where both decks just have like a bunch of shitty cards in them, a bunch of blues or whatever. Hot Streak against most decks, not all, but most decks, allow you to put on a lot of pressure in a fatigue situation. You swing for 2. Most people run attack action cards, and majority of their deck, they have to block it. Oh, you get go again, swing Centauri Saber, right? That means off of 1 blue card, you can easily produce anywhere between 4 and 5 damage. No other cards needed. You don't need a card for go again. No nothing. That is an amazing end game state. Does that mean you win fatigue every time? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is that is a good position to be in that situation. Okay? So, if I'm playing a Warrior deck and you're worried about fatigue, this is your answer. Okay? This is it. When it comes to fatigue, I promise you every time I will guide the way on that one. I promise you. Okay. We talked about grains. We talked about Hot Streak. Both, I think Hot Streak will be a sideboard card for possibly all Warriors. Dory's the one where it's debatable. I think you probably just go all in on Dawnblade. All two-handed weapon Warriors. I'll put it that way. Consistently two-handed weapon Warriors. I think Hot Streak in the sideboard is just worth it. Just worth it. Let me catch up on chat. Let's see. Yeah, I think Kasai will settle to be a little better than Dory in the meta. I don't disagree with that. Hot streak with grains equipped is such a damned if you do. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Iron Song versus as well, 100%. Dawnblade is cracked with the new stuff. It is not bad, I can guarantee you that. Also, Hot Streak Cat in Combo Bolton has a way to preserve soul. I'm sure Josh has went over that several times. The next card we'll go over is Blade Fury. This is just insane with any two one-hander warriors, right? Even a Dawnblade Dory, it's great because basically what this card says is like if they don't have a D react, right? Most people are going to block or block slightly above. So if you have like another 3 pump and then you add this to it, you've cleared your swing and then made the next one harder to block, which is probably the most important part of it. And if not, if they just disrespect it, then this is a 0 for 4 in reaction speed. This is the first ever 1 card 4 value reaction ever. Period. With the exception of Red Shred, which they have to have a D react kind of situation. But it's just really good. Okay, I think this is ran in just about every warrior. I think the only warrior where maybe it's not ran is Bolton because Bolton's like the least weapon centric out of all of them probably, although Olympia could challenge that. But yeah, Blade Fury is just, it's really good. Trust me. This is really good in Bolton. It's a yellow, gives go again, takes agency away from your opponent, gives agility token if they deny it. Agility in Bolton is an insane concept that is worth building around. We'll get to that after. Well, fuck it. We'll do it right now. So agility in Bolton is insane because it removes the agency away from the opponent, right? You can just play your Bolt of Courage for 3, charge your little rinky-dink card, and then they say no blocks. And if you don't have snaps or a way to pump it, you're toast, right? Your turn is over. But like having agility token just removes all of that. And it's so impactful. So impactful. So if I'm a Bolton player, I'm going to be going through my entire deck list and saying, how do I incorporate more agilities into my list? First thing I'm doing if I'm a Bolton player. I think this card is obviously great because it was our spoiler. But I'm not that high on it. Right? I hate effects that say if your opponent does something a certain way, you get X. It's just not something I'm a fan of. Like, on hit is where I like to draw the line. Like, if something hits, something happens. I'm cool with doing that. But, like, if they defend with an attack action card and they have to have an arsenal, if they don't do either one of those things, this is just a below rate card. Seems sus. Seems really, really sus. I think chat's exactly right. I think that if you're ever in a meta like Lexi ever again, where you really need to pressure the arsenal, this card will see play. Am I rushing to put it in my decks now? Unfortunately not. But if anybody asked, it's the best card in the set because that was our spoiler. Just so everybody knows. Raise an army, we kind of already touched on it. The way you should look at gold in Kasai is like a, input-output, right? This card says the way you should read Raise an Army is you got so many bags you don't know what to do with them. So you're going to ball out and pay the levy and raise an army, right? That's literally how it reads. Trust me, look at the flavor text. No, for real. you have to have such a gold engine for this card to make sense that I think you're going to pay so much of a value cost in the process of acquiring that much gold to where once you actually realize the value of this card, it might break even, to be honest with you. And even then, I think it's only good against certain decks that don't have a lot of action points. Against a deck that has decent number of action points, it's just bad. Like, if you resolve this against a ninja, you're just asking to lose, right? It is what it is. You can't ever rely on your opponent. I like those words. I can agree with that. Dead early game. Dead in the race. Dead against heavy action decks. Yep, I agree. I agree. Okay, then we have Cut the Deck. I'm not a fan of this. There's better cards. Like, I would rather have Out for Blood. Get the +1 than maybe the situational arsenal rotation. If we're going to call anytime card text says defended by an action card, an attack action card, the way you should read that is reprise ×2. So not only do they have to block, which is reprise from hand, right? But they have to block with a specific card, right? And I know you're saying the only time that this card is as easy to pull off as reprise is if they block with Down and Dirty from Arsenal. That is the only time. Or they Art of War defend from Arsenal. That's it. Other than that, it's always harder to pull off than reprise. Okay? So we're going to call it reprise with extra steps. Okay, so this says +3, reprise with extra steps, draw a card, put a card from your hand or arsenal at the bottom of your deck so you can rotate it out. I'd rather have Out for Blood. Simple as that. This card is a limited all-star, I believe, and so of course it has the reprise with extra steps. However, any time that you can add 5 in reaction speed, it's worth a conversation. I'm not saying it's good, but you have to understand the value of adding 5 attack in reaction speed to target attack. To target attack. You can Tunic play this on a CNC. Don't do that in your warrior decks. I'm just saying that the possibilities are endless, right? You should understand what the possibilities are. It's the reason that Overpower is so good. It's just so much attack value out of nowhere that it's a respected card. It is a respected card. Did we switch from analyzing the heroes and how they're going to get built or going card by card? We're going to go back over. I think I mentioned how Victor's going to be built. I'm going to go over some of the key cards, and then I'm going to talk about how Kasai should be built. I'm not going to deny that information. I promise you I will cover that. Okay. People already tend to disrespect warrior, just don't block. Yep, absolutely. That's the biggest problem they have. Nathan, sorry to bring up a guardian question during the warrior part, but what are your thoughts on wall of meat and muscle? Not a big fan of it. There's just not enough. I mean, if you have a card that's so pivotal to your game plan, try it. But those cards, because you have to have like a might token, don't you? And that's just too situational. I don't like it. Not a fan. Not a fan. But yes, like chat was saying, it's very similar to like blue overpower, things like that. You know, it is what it is. We're going to skip a lot of these. This one's fine if you want to take the risk, but it's very risky. Blocks 2. That's the devs telling you this card's really good. right there. Blocking 2 on a warrior card. The only other warrior cards before these that block 2, if I'm not mistaken, is Courageous Steel Hand. I think literally every other warrior card blocks 3, if it blocks. Draw Swords is an interesting card, right? It turns on the Kasai ability. I see this being a All-Star Unlimited for Kasai, but like in CC, it's very expensive. But you get your sword swings for free. The problem is you have to pay for this and a card with that gives your attacks go again. I think some lists will play around with it. Don't sleep on this card. I'm not saying it's amazing. It's an auto include, but like it's solid. I don't think these will see play in Kasai. This one is I think people are sleeping on this card. I think it's really good. Get an agility, vigor, go again off of a blue. Blocks 2 though, but you take it where you can get it. Okay. So let's talk about since we went over some cards, let's talk about what in the hell is Kasai actually trying to do? Well, I think it's Levi that has posted a Kasai list in the Purple Discord, and I think that is a great starting point. He's thought about some very important ratios, some very important token generation. I think that is a very good foundation on what the deck is trying to do. But immediately, as I predicted before the full set was revealed, was a lot of people were going to fall for the trap of this card, go all in on it, and realize it just is not worth it. Just because it was so cool that Warriors could make board state, right? And so I think at this point, everybody is either came to that conclusion or will shortly, right? And so now people are like, okay, let's go all in on Blood on Our Hands. And I don't think that is the answer either. I think you need to run, the Copper generation, obviously Spoils of War, Outland Skirmish, all of these like Copper generation. One thing that you need to note if you're testing Kasai is if you don't keep track of like in your games, people did this and so it resulted in this, I highly recommend it. Because one thing that you're going to notice playing Kasai is if people do not respect Spoils of War, you will win the game. Okay? And if people do respect it, the game becomes much more difficult, right? Because that is like your main engine, right? So I think that most of the Kasai decks, I think, are not running enough reactions. I think they're too focused on gotta make that gold, get that card draw, and not enough about, like, I want to fully lean into Blood on Our Hands. And I think the easiest way you do that while not making things just truly weird is by introducing more reactions. There's some obvious ones: Blade Fury, In the Swing, maybe Out for Blood. Something along. The reason Out for Blood's so good is if they block the first swing and you swing with the Centauri Saber second, it gives that one +1, which pumps it to a 3. If they block with an attack, it now goes to 4. So Out for Blood is important in Kasai because it gives the second Centauri Saber, or if you swung with the Hot Strength first, it gives that Centauri Saber a break point if they block with an attack. So don't sleep on Out for Blood. I think that's a very important one for Kasai. Because if you can get a Spoils of War to hit, I think your win percentage instantly goes up a solid amount. So that's what I'm going to do. The second thing is obviously the red and yellow ratio for the hero ability. That's kind of a no-brainer. I think the Nourishing line is 100% worth it. It's just too good of a card to not do it. You just run 3 Nourishings and then banish all your attacks out. It's solid, right? And then as at worst case scenario, it's a popper, right? It's just too worth it. I have a really hard time fitting the 1 cost reactions into the cost curve. Yes, I do agree that that is difficult, which is why the first cards I named were Blade Fury, In the Swing, maybe Iron Song Response, those cards, which are the zeros, obviously. But I think Out for Blood is the only 1 cost one I would run because it gives Centaur Sabers that breakpoint. Most of the front pumps have to come out like play for. Yeah, I think Slice and Dice is fine. Slice and Dice is a 0 for 4 in red. I think the yellow one's a little ambitious, although deck building with Kasai is all about getting the most out of your yellows to turn on the hero ability, right? That's really what it comes down to. Because anytime Kasai has not activated her hero ability or played Spoils of War, I really don't give a shit what she's doing. Simple as that. When you're playing Kasai, if you want respect, you have to demand it. And the way you do that is with your hero ability and Spoils of War, right? Definitely not Stroke of Foresight. I don't think it's worth it. Front pumps have to come out. Yep. So that's what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to try to find the absolute best yellow cards. And to be honest, I'm going to try to run as few of them as possible. Some of the things that come to mind is like yellow Slice and Dice. Like it's still a 0 for 3 in yellow, which is pretty good rate. And it's a respectable card in yellow, right? I'm going to start thinking Cash In. Yeah, a lot of people have already thought about a lot of these cards, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. The main thing that I would advise is don't go too far into this. Go into Spoils of War and Blood on Our Hands, but make sure that you have the reaction package to force those Spoils of War and Outland Skirmish hits to actually make Blood on Our Hands a card with text. That's the main thing. What do you think of red and yellow Sifs? They trigger Kasai. They are cards that fill or activate ability. Okay, let's talk about that for a sec. This is a real easy one. You want to play Sift, which let's go over what it does. You take any number of cards. You play the card. It has go again. You take any number of cards from your hand, whatever, depending on what the color is, and put them to the bottom of your deck and draw a card. Okay? Which means you've actively made your defense, the defense part of your turn, off of the knowledge that is in your hand, right? So you're like, this hand's gas. I'm not blocking. Play Sift, sink cards, draw 3 blues. This hand is no longer gas, right? I wish I would have blocked with it. You have those situations. But let's say you sink a card and draw the exact same card, right? The perfect scenario, right? Then all you've done is you've taken a card out of your hand value-wise to make your swings free. Why not just pitch the card? Right? Any yellow card in the game does the exact same thing as you were trying to accomplish. So why invest it in a Sift? Right? That's the way I would approach that. What do you think of Cash In and Kasai? I like it. I like it. I would rather spend the gold there than raise an army, if I'm being honest with you. Big push turns, combats fatigue, turns on the hero ability. Obviously, it's a yellow card. Blocks 2, but I think it's solid. Stroke for my testing is fine, but still have to pay for the first swing. So it's, yeah. Hot take, but I like Remembrance and Kasai. Cycling some key cards is wild, having 6 spoils. Yeah. The one problem I have with Remembrance is if you read the text on Remembrance, it banishes itself. Okay. I've never seen somebody actively remembrance blue cards, right? So I've never seen like, oh man, I gotta have this blue card, right? Let's put that back in the deck. No, you're putting your reds back. If you're taking red, if you're playing a card that does not go in your graveyard, and then taking 3 reds or yellows out of your graveyard into your deck, that means you are actively in, by playing that card, you are removing 4 cards away from your hero ability, right? Because you're banishing red and yellow cards. So I'm not a, if it's like a necessity to beat a certain strategy, maybe, but I would be very hesitant on Remembrance. Copper build. Yeah, I just went over how I think Blood on Our Hands is actually better than uh actually actively better than Raise an Army. I think you're looking at it in the wrong direction. If your hand is good, you block with the Sift. It is a block 3. Absolutely. If your hand is garbage, you cycle it. If your hand is bad, you should block, just block. But if your hand is garbage, you should just block and not take the risk of burning a card for no value. Like, I don't understand that analysis. The Sift is going to make bad hands that you don't use to block because the opponent took an off turn. Yes, if you have a bad hand, so I used to run Sift in Briar, specifically the blue one. And yes, it was a hedge against if I drew all non-attacks, right? But I hardly ever played it, and I only played it in that situation. But in Briar, it blocks 4. That's why I think that that's a good card, right? I'm never spending a card. I'm never putting a card in my deck to where its only purpose is to bail me out of a not so bad spot, right? Because just because you sync cards doesn't mean you're drawing what you need. It just means you're drawing different cards, right? And if you actually look at it from a mathematical perspective, I'm assuming you're talking about like all blues, right? Well, if you draw all blues and you sync them all, you might not draw a blue, right? Statistically speaking. So, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm not spending a card's worth of value to filter my hand. I just don't see the value there. Prodigy, I have not gone over expansion slots. I will at the end though for you. Just for you. I wouldn't do it for anybody else. I mean, Zachary puts it a little differently, but I mean, it's along the same lines. You could make those garbage hands better by replacing Sift with a good card. Not the words I would have used, but I think we're trying to say something similar. Thank you. I just tuned out for a while and I missed it. Yeah, if you just go back just a little bit. I think I like literally just went over it, Mark. But thank you for being here. Absolutely. Nathan put in work on a Monday night. Yep. Pulling in that overtime. That OT. What do you think about Yellow High Striker? Remind me what High Striker is. You said yellow. Next time an attack you control hits this turn, create 4 copper tokens. Okay, the Everfest card. I like the thought process that you're I like the thought process. I respect it. And and I don't think it's a complete. The way that I would look at that card is if something happened in the meta, and it was like it was like a super aggressive meta. I would look at that card and say, 9 times out of 10, I'll play this. I think I can get to hit with just one reaction. But if D reacts are anywhere to be found as a whole from the meta, I am staying the hell away from that card. Because I've never been a fan. Like the only card that I've played that is comparable to Height Striker would be Mauvrian Skies, right? Those of you who don't know, it's a Runeblade card. Next Runeblade attack action gets go again, and if it hits, gain X amount of rune chance depending on the color. The reason why that card is fine is I'm spending a whole card to give an attack an effect. However, no matter what my opponent does, I'm getting my go again. High Striker, you're getting nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. And I hate playing cards that could end up having a value of exactly 0. And playing that also comes at the block value of 2. Not a fan. Not a fan. But if we're in a very, very aggressive meta and allows you to play it, get 4 copper, and then sit back and wait on blood on our hands, I could see a weird situation where it could work. But kinda iffy on it. So yeah. Going back to that there war. Yeah, so we kind of covered a lot about Kasai. I don't think there's much more to go over. I think we covered. Do you think this will be a fun set to draft? I think it'll be way better than Bright Lights. If you ever drafted Outsiders, I think it'll be either at or maybe even slightly above Outsiders. It would be my guess. Like WTR vibes kind of thing. You think blue Fatal Engagement could have a place in Warrior? I mean, like I said, if you really needed some throughput in certain matchups, it's something I would entertain. I would never put it in overpower. So if you needed to bake it into your resource curve, I look at that card as like copies 4 through 6 of overpower, right? So if you need 4 through 6 of blue overpower, go grab it, right? But I'm never running that card over overpower. It just doesn't make sense. I think that covers everything in chat. Okay, so now we're going to go over Olympia. And that's going to conclude our stream. No, I'm just kidding. Now, everybody, I'm pretty sure, has seen I think everybody has seen the video where James White did the interview with, I believe it was Fluke, from Fluke and Box. I believe he did an interview with James White, and James White stated that he was a last second hero addition to the set. And that he knows that people are looking at the set and saying, what is the payoff to the gold? I mean, Noah could not stop saying that in all of the Discords. You know, he was asking everybody what to spend the gold on, right? And James White basically confirmed that it will come out later this year, basically. And yeah, so we don't have the direct payoff for the gold. It does not exist. Okay. Does that mean that this is a dead hero? Kind of. but not entirely. Okay, so this hero actually, from like an analytical standpoint on against all the other heroes, this hero took the longest because I could not find anything that made sense, right? I'm just going to walk you through my thought process, right? So the first time each of your attacks, it doesn't say weapon swing, anything, it just says attack, wins a wager, create a gold. Okay? We obviously have no gold expenditure other than cash in, physically popping the gold for a resource, or his up the ante, right? Or that doesn't even expend it, right? So like that's it. The helmet pops a gold, I think. So there's no output for the gold that you're attempting to create, right? So it put me in like quite a pickle because my knee-jerk reaction was, why do I want to bother wagering if I don't have a strong output to use what I'm getting? Okay, like why am I trying so hard to stretch something just for there to be no result? And then a thought came to me, chat. The thought came to me, and it's not that you need to reach that far. It's that you need to talk your opponent into not reaching as far. And how you do that, I know some people are going to love what I'm about to say, and some people are going to hate it. And I hope there's less of those people. I think Olympia is a Decimator Great Axe deck. If you think about it, it's actually a match made in heaven, right? You give wager to the axe. And it says, if this hits, I get X. Right? And then on the text of the axe, it says, hey, if you want to stop this, I'm going to make it more difficult. That is the only chat. When I said I tried to make Savage Beatdown work in Kayo, I spent half as much time doing that as trying to figure out what the hell this hero is supposed to be doing, y'all. I mean, I've taken differential equations classes easier in not analyzing this hero. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's the only line that I could draw. Get shit from wager, Decimator Axe, deducting defensive value from your opponent's cards. That seems like a match made in heaven. So then, the question becomes, by giving the axe wager, which there's plenty ways you can do that. There's edge ahead, give warrior attack +3, wager an agility token, right? There's multiple ways that you can give the axe wager in the form of money where your mouth is, edge ahead, and then there's the vigor one, okay? Now, the vigor one makes sense because if you ever get a vigor token, it pays for the wager card that you're attempting to put on the axe, right? It no longer costs an additional resource. That's why I think Olympia is a tunic deck, is because you need to get that ball rolling. So you're going to tunic counter, play edge ahead, and then swing axe. You're kind of like we used to do in with like cleave in the Great Axe build for Dory, basically, is the idea. Now, if you're going to run edge ahead, you need a way to utilize the agility token, right? And you need some like one cost attacks, maybe 0 for 4s like Snatch to kind of also bake into it, right? Like you give the Decimator Axe go again and you throw a Snatch at the end or something like that. That's the best thing I could come up with, chat. I tried everything. I was like, what if we run CNC, give it wager, and play take the upper hand? Like, okay. As soon as that works, I'm going to go buy a lottery ticket because that shit just... You're asking for so many things to line up that it's ridiculous. And... like, yes, you can do it, but like, what if they don't block with an attack action? Like, that's the best idea I got, chat. Let me get caught up on chat. Olympia is kind of boring, but love how much blank canvas he has. Yep. Lots of argument to play Decimator Olympia. Yep, that's what I just said. Yep, 100% agree. Can't swing weapon twice. Yep, you just have to run attack actions to supplement the agility. Yep, 100% agree. Yeah, it looks like, chat, you came to the same conclusion as I did. Absolutely. Simple cost benefit analysis. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, Olympia best counter to Kyloria. Yeah, you have a bunch of gold you don't need, you just give it to Kyloria. And then they make a whole bunch of ash off of it. Desser makes going tall real hard to counter wager. Yep, absolutely. Decimator is Pog. It's okay. That's the first place you went. I'm glad you went straight there because I did not. That was the last place I ended, and when I found it, I was like, okay, my job is done. Axe always hit. Yep, absolutely. Ain't no way. He can go real aggressive with the axe. Yep. Nathan and you, all the other drummer players, don't understand the value in gold tokens. What's the value in gold tokens, Prodigy? Oh, okay. It's for furnace. Okay, like it allows you to turn. You draw a card and you can turn a red into a blue. Like that's probably what you're. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. It's a deep sink for furnace. I agree. It's not just for the ash generation, but the ash generation is no, not furnace. I give up. Please enlighten us, Prodigy. I would love to know. But back while Prodigy is not giving us the information that we need, I'm going to I wish I could bring you more on Olympia, but I tried like an attack based deck, trying to extract value from what's that card set like these, the Rising Powers. Like if you've drawn a card, and I was like, okay, if I get a bunch of gold, and like I get like the payoff of Rising, that's a Brute Guardian, but there's like another cycle that these Rising Energy, like this is a 1 for 6 if you've drawn a card, right? So you could pop a gold. This is the only card that I found that utilizes this strategy. This is actually a good card. Theoretically, if you pop a gold token with a blue, you can play this card for 6 value. This is a 1 card 6 if you have a gold token. So at the cost of 1 card and a gold, 6. Right? That's like the only value oriented play I could come up with. But then like you have to give the shit wager to keep the engine going, and like I don't see it. I don't see it, chat. I hope somebody brings this to like some event. And does something. But I mean, this card's great. Like, but I can't think of one hero where I play the hero because of one specialization card. I don't know. Okay, what is Prodigy's answer? It enables 5-card 25s. Tome, Furnace, Crack Gold, Float 1, make 2 Ash. You have 5-card hand. Okay. I concur. I stand corrected. Yep, that's pretty good. I agree. Yeah, axe gold. They said it perfectly in chat. Gold lets them play the axe aggressively because you can fit the 1-cost pumps. It's very important that you're running 1-cost pumps that apply to the axe. Not I mean, Failing Swing will probably be included into the list, maybe in blue or whatever. But like, the point is, you want the 1-cost, pitch the blue, have another blue, swing axe for 7, and then have them discount. The problem is I'm not sure you beat any deck that could just race you, and like do more than 13 value per turn. Like, you're never beating Phi doing that. You're not extracting enough value from doing that. So yeah, so that is like, that's that. I'm not too high on Olympia. I hope to be proven wrong, but it does not seem to be yet. I think it's pretty good and limited, but not that. Prodigy specifically asked for the expansion slot cards, and I'm not going to deny it. So let's hit those real quick. Let's start at the top. We got the assassin weapon. I think that this card is okay. It's not bad. It's not making me play assassin. The problem is, every time you activate the ability on this card, that is one less activation you get on your best piece of equipment, which is Black Tech Whispers. And it just does not... From a value standpoint, I can't activate this card knowing that I could just get a Black Tech Whisper activation. Block with 1 for free and get go again. Like, it just... This card is just mid. Like, it's not amazing, but it's not bad. This card's dumb good, but it's just in a shit hero is the problem. And I'm sorry for any Arachne fans, but like, does this improve Arachne? The answer is 100% yes. It gives him the opportunity to do something he's never been able to do before. And he's still worse than Azuri, I think. Although, I'm sure that they're... Like, this card, theoretically, if you either draw it at like the most amazing point in time, like you like have 3 or 4 0 for 4s and you have this in Arsenal, like, it's insane because you just go boop, 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 right? And they just mill your deck for like a bunch. I see a world where there's going to be like a pitch stack god, right? And he's going to pitch stack this and all the assassin 0 for 4s that mill cards off the top of your deck, and they're going to blast them at the end of the game where you have no armor and you can't cover up the break points, and they're going to mill, what? It would be 1 card, then 2, then 3, then 4. So it's like 4 exclamation basically, which is value of 10. You mill 10 cards if all of them hit. Obviously, they're not all going to hit. It's going to work one time, and then people are going to realize you just blocked the last two. Call it a day. I think that's what's going to happen. But it's a good card. Just Arachne's not where it is. I think this card is extremely overrated. It's not. Once again, it's not a bad card. It's just not. All right. So when you look at this card, this is what I do with any new addition to a deck that's previously been established, right? I would say Katsu's been pretty solved. Everybody's doing the bonds, the Flusterfist, with a Winds package. Everybody's doing the same thing. Lord of Wind, Mugenshi for anti-fatigue against Dromai and some other decks. Everybody's doing relatively the same plan, right? And the blues in Katsu, right? You have your Whelmings, you have your Dishonor, you have Winds of Eternity, you have Lord of Wind. Like, all of your blues are very, very important combo pieces to certain cards, right? So to incorporate this card, you either have to remove one of those very important pieces or you have to up your blue count. And I don't know which one you're going to do, but either one of those choices has an opportunity cost associated with it. Okay. So we've basically established that this card going into the deck, you're already starting out on a bad foot because you got to take something good out of the deck. Is this better? Maybe. But it doesn't mean you're not paying an opportunity cost somewhere else, right? Like you take Winds of Eternity out, and now your 100 wins become slightly worse because you can't end with a shitty blue and actually be a good attack, right? You are paying that cost by adding this card. Okay? But blue whelming is so important for Bonds of Ancestry, right? Like you don't want to actively be removing your red whelmings when you could theoretically get those back in certain matchups where you're trying to like Mugenshi and Lord of Wind them back into your deck, right? And you can always, like, it just gets more whelmings into the graveyard. So, like, it's just so many pieces to that situation. You really need the whelmings to, like, double bonds and stuff like that. Very important. But, like I said, you could take out whichever blue you decide to. Just know that there's an opportunity cost associated with it. So, this card has a negative aspect coming into the deck. All attacks with combo get +1. Okay, so obviously you have to play this. It's an action card. It's not an instant. So you have to play this at the very beginning of the turn. Okay? Your attacks with combo get +1. So it's like Art of War, but does not apply to the first attack. And it says, banish the top card of your deck. If this has combo, you may play it this turn. Okay. Explain to me what situation. Okay. You have to have a blue. That's not this. Then you have to have this. And then you have to have the natty combo. Right? Because if you don't have the natty combo, then you need to discard this card to go get it. Because you don't just have infinite cards in your hand. Okay? So the only way you're actively unless you just have the biggest balls on the planet and you're missing one combo piece and you know exactly where it is in your pitch stack and you play this and get the exact combo piece you need. If that happens, then you won the game before you sat down. Like, congratulations. But for this card to be played, you have to have the natty combo in your hand, an extra blue, and this card. Right? That's the only way it's playable. Somebody in chat explained to me a way that's not that, where this card's playable. You're not going to just play a surging, whelming line, and then, like, okay, maybe if you rip it off of like a whelming draw, you can play it and get 2 value off of it. Sure. You could set up with floating dojo. I will concede that point. However, that forces you to run another shitty blue that doesn't block. You just play 900 wins and lose the game. I just don't see it, chat. Like, in what magical Christmas land are you utilizing this card? It pitches for 3. It calls 0. But that's the problem. You're basically saying it has no opportunity cost because of the stat line, right? The problem is there's 14,000 ninja cards that have the same stat line, right? And the best ones are already in the deck. And they all are role players with what the deck is trying to accomplish. But like Prodigy, what is EBTT? Oh, even bigger than that. Kodachi, play this, then draw a card from EBT. I mean, sure. Okay. Yeah, you have exactly what you want, and you play even bigger than that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Run 2 in lieu of yellow Mugenshi. I mean, if you're not worried about fatigue, sure, but like that's your biggest. Yeah, but even bigger than that, it replaces itself. You get to stack the deck. Okay, so you need 2 blues. You need the natty combo and an even bigger than that. Okay, it just got way easier. Yeah, I get what you're saying. But needing exactly... Look, Bolton spends the whole game to get just 2 cards. And he has 6 copies, quote unquote, if you include Beacon and Lumina, of this card, right? And it, on average, takes him turn 5 or 6 to obtain it. And you're asking to have 3 of all different cards in the, like it. I understand you don't need the natty combo, but what you do need is you need part of the combo, and then you need to even bigger than that into the missing piece of the combo, right? And that's like, that may happen, it may not, right? Granted, the one point that I will concede is there's no opportunity cost associated with looking for that piece. But if you whiff, then this is just better being a Winds of Eternity. Like, it just is. But anyway, that's enough time on that. This card's bad. This is budget Red in the Ledger. In all seriousness, like, it's okay. The point is, like, the 0 or 1 cost items are just not worth taking. So I don't know. If Mech ever needs to beat up on Dash.io, throw it in your deck. I don't know what else to say. Azalea will always run the 1 copy because it's like just strictly better than anything that's not Red and Ledger, probably. That's a 1 cost. Reelin, I think that the best version of Riptide is the very offensive one, not a second cycle, bunch of traps version. So I don't like this card. This card is very good in Vincent. It allows Vincent to access her most powerful card, which is Rune Incantation. The one that makes a rune chant at the beginning of every turn to make sure that she can actually do the Rune Gate mechanic consistently. It's 100% her best card. Not even close. And this lets you go tutor it, which makes it a good card. In Viscera, It's a little more iffy. There's not as many like solid, straightforward targets. I could see this being played in a slow control OTK Viscerai, building up rune chance, going and grabbing incantations, but Oculus, whatever all those are. You can go grab a bunch of those. Like in Vin's set, this is a great way to put it. This card to Vin's set is this card to Arachne. Both good cards and bad heroes. And then in Viscerai, if you're doing some crazy OTK stuff, it fills a role, right? Chat, I cannot explain. The happiness that was on my face when I saw this card. For those of you who don't know, I hate playing against Wizard. It's just tedious, man. It's not fun. Specifically Kano. Icelander, I enjoyed it a little bit. It was a puzzle that you had to solve. She didn't just kill you out of nowhere. But Kano, it's just whack. It's like playing a Kano match is like playing Yu-Gi-Oh! You're like watching somebody else play the game. And I just don't enjoy it, if I'm being honest. Nothing against people who play Kano. Like, it is what it is. Like, you enjoy what you enjoy. More power to you. But when I saw this card, bro, it put the biggest smile on my face because I knew they were done giving Kano good cards. Sucks to suck. Oh, man. I knew they were done. Oh, I knew they were done. I saw this card and I was like, Kano's never getting a good card ever again. Hell yes. So, yeah. Kano players, take out your blue zap, put this in. Never get any win advantage because of it. Oh, man. God, this made me so happy. Okay. This card is not bad. It's not good. It is late. Lexi LL'd a couple months ago. That's like where you would have needed it. So, yeah. Yeah, this card's not bad. It's not good. Like I said, it's just late. It's just late. If we had this during the Lexi meta, it'd be very different because it says put all cards. So you're basically against Lexi taking 2 of their cards. If Sandscour, Great Bow, Azalea ever takes off, we could see this card getting played. Other than that, I don't think there's ever a situation where I'm trying to do it. Although I do see the niche interaction where, like, if you run this card in Drone Mine, you could like put stuff in risky stuff in Arsenal more often, but it's a yellow. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it. Chat, this card's pretty good. This card's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of people on Twitter reacted the same way that I did when I first saw this. When I first saw this card, I said, "Oh shit, we're not doing this again." I panicked. I will admit, I let my emotions get the best of me, and I said that this is too much power for one hero to hold. But then I remember that bitch started on 30 or 32. No, it's a great weapon. It's a great weapon, right? It's not bad. It's nowhere. It's a phenomenal weapon. This weapon alone, so this, I think when everybody saw this card, I'm trying to get my thoughts together, Chad. I'm sorry. When I saw this card, everybody was scared that everybody was scared when they saw this card that the devs no longer had the ability to balance illusionist. Like that was the consensus on Twitter, right? Like how could you ever print this again? Like that was what everybody was saying. In all actuality, this card gave me the most faith in LSS's ability to balance this game. Then I know this is going to sound crazy because a lot of you probably think it's overpowered. And it's a very, very, very strong weapon. However, what this weapon does is it puts Prism players in a pickle, right? And not a pickle that you can eat on any day, right? It's if you go all yellow to maximize the effectiveness of this weapon, you will get shit on by Guardian. Okay? So if you want to take this card to the max, right? You will lose something you have historically always won. You'll lose every brute matchup. You'll lose every Guardian matchup. Hell, anybody that runs 10 poppers, you will probably lose the game if you go all in on this card. Okay? However, if you choose to scale back, like personally, like in deck building, not lean on this weapon as much, you can run a heavier blue package and then sideboard into an Iris plan to combat those strategies, then this weapon simply does not have the opportunity to be as strong as it really can be, right? The best part about this weapon is it allows the Prism players to choose which match they're losing. It doesn't allow them to have a very good win rate into both. It simply says, which one do you want to win? And then you do really well in that one. And I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with it. I think this is a amazingly, it's one of the strongest, most well-balanced cards in the game. They did such an amazing job on this card. It took them 2 tries, but they killed it. I mean, they killed it. I understand they were a little worried on the first one. I get it. I get it. But they killed it on this. Also, all yellows is not even good with the... No, I mean, you're never running all yellows. God, no. God, no. It's just a matter of how many blues, right? It's all about how many blues you want to run. The more blues you run, the better the Iris package works. The slightly you have to factor in more inconsistencies involving this weapon because you don't have access to as many yellow cards because you still need your powerful reds, your war tunes, and the high value reds, right? There's not a ton of them, but you get what I'm saying. So I think it's a strong card. I think it's well balanced. I think Prism will be in the meta, but not like overly oppressive. The problem is it's an illusionist, and anytime you lose against an illusionist, it doesn't usually feel that good. That's the problem with illusionists in the game of Flesh and Blood. Is I want to say, I don't know for sure, but I've spent a lot of years in this game, a lot of time in this game, and I don't think there's a more hated / loved, even more than Wizard, I would say. I don't think there's a more hated slash loved game class in this game than than um, than illusionist. Just because a lot of times when you lose, you just kind of feel helpless, like there's nothing you could have done, uh, kind of situation. So, yep, chat's backing me up. Hate the class, hate the class. Yep. So, uh, LSS is going to do what they do. Obviously, they really like illusionists. They gave Prism the super duper treatment with cold foil everything in the deck kind of situation. So obviously, why do you think I like the class name? Come on, Prodigy, you're a good guy. Have you considered that maybe Donkel? Never change, Donkel. Yep, Kano does a lot of the hate on the heavy lifting, or the heavy lifting on the wizard hate. I agree. Oh yeah, there's a ton of Prism interactions. Absolutely. All right, chat. We tried to reverse engineer heavy hitters. My goal was for everybody to, maybe see a good take and, take it with you when you go deck building for the hero that you prefer. Or hear a bad take and, try to prove it wrong and stumble on something that actually works very well. Whatever the case may be, I hope that each and every one of you gained value in some way, whether it be Donkel just poking fun, having a good time, or getting value in a competitive manner in some way. I really, really do appreciate everybody being here. Don't go anywhere quite yet. If you want the trademarked tier list, that's going to be on Wednesday. 2 days from now, we're going to hit the special. We're busting out the tier list. We're going to be doing the CC tier list on where I think the meta is, where I think all the heroes fall. I know a lot of people ask, and I'm going to be going over that on Wednesday. It's a doozy. I think this meta is the most difficult to analyze than any other that we've probably ever seen. Tier list, everybody's but yeah, that will be in store for Wednesday, and we'll, depending on how long that takes, we'll probably do some like KO gameplay afterwards, something like that. But once again, thank you guys for showing up on a day I usually don't stream. Once again, thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. I really do appreciate it. It means the world. It means the world. And if you see me in Hartford, say hi. I love talking to people, meeting people, catching up, whatever the case may be. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. I think that's going to do it for the stream. Thank you for joining me. And I'll hopefully see everybody in 2 days. Take care, everybody, and good luck